OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Okay, you are very welcome along to OTB AM this morning. We are coming to you live, and it's a very important morning around the world. You might have noticed that there's an election ongoing in the United States of America, although Donald Trump has just said that they won it and they're going to go to the Supreme Court to make sure that the actual result might not carry. He's literally just finished speaking in the White House. It's 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. It's 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. Owen is with us, but I'm also delighted to say Johnny Kennedy is with us Eastern time, 2:30 in the morning from the long haul, I suspect. Johnny, good morning to you. How are you?
Doing good, lads. How are you?
I don't know if you managed to catch any of what Trump just said there, but...
I did, actually, yeah. I was listening to it right up to it. Yeah, apparently he's won and we've got robbed and all the above.
Yeah.
He is mad.
Oh,
my God.
I saw various businesses in Manhattan yesterday boarding up for fear of what was coming tonight. But I suspect tonight's actually been quite calm, has it?
There's been a little bit of it, but I don't think it's exactly election related. But I'd say they're saving themselves. Like, they're probably getting a good night's sleep knowing that they're going to go to it. Like, because the NYPD definitely, they have been told, we've been chatting to a few of them, and they were literally in with my brother during the week in his bar because they're open. And they were literally told, like, you know, get as much rest as you can. They're expecting it. No matter who got in, they were expecting it. But this is definitely a whole new level now, because what way is it going to go now? Well, we're not going to know anyway for weeks. We all know that. But I would say, I would listen to every business. Empire State Building, Saks Fifth Avenue, Macy's, them all. Like, they can't be all paranoid. There has to be something behind it. Like, so everywhere is boarded up. But let's hope it doesn't happen. But I think it will. I really do.
And what was the atmosphere walking around the streets like for the last day and a half?
Fine enough. The city's not that busy. I've been in and out of it and around it, and just, yeah, there doesn't seem to be nothing's really changed, because Manhattan hasn't started again. Manhattan is still in the height of COVID, sort of COVID rules. There's not a COVID problem I don't mean it in that way, but you know what I'm saying, in a sense, like the numbers are great, all this type of thing, but the majority of offices haven't gone back. And any of them that did go back that we spoke to, they were all told to leave the city today. They were told to take all their office stuff home with them, with the anticipation of working home for at least through the weekend anyway. They were saying just stay at home like for the rest of the week, just in case. Don't be coming in and out of the city. They're anticipating it that much.
And I think we're all just kind of trying to digest what Donald Trump has just said. This is like obviously moved quite quickly. Like, things have changed a lot in the last half an hour, as extraordinary as some of the things were overnight. Like, I think you've just asked the question on Twitter, Ger, is this a coup? Like, I mean, what we've just heard from Donald Trump is extraordinary, really. He has claimed victory in all of this. One of the things that I've often wondered, Johnny, is from New York's perspective, do you often feel a little bit left out on nights like this when all the attention is on the backwaters of North Carolina and Ohio, and New York declares early, and the massive population is deemed largely relevant to the discourse later into the night?
I was thinking the exact same thing earlier on. I was thinking, like, these little towns in Pennsylvania, it must be like Leitrim, like kind of winning the All-Ireland. Like, they get this mention all night on TV. They keep getting this mention. They're probably, I would say some of them even vote against the grain, so they will get a mention. They just do it for the shits and giggles of it, like, because there is. But New York is always this automatic. Yeah, it's a given. But I was texting a couple of friends from home all night, and I was definitely going to the extreme. But I'd never seen so many New Yorkers, friends and everyone included, talking about voting for Trump. And I mean, openly. Like, I heard Bill Maher saying earlier on about some of these big places. Like, 4 years ago, people hid that they were Trump fans. They hid this, they hid that. Now it was the opposite. Now they had their flags out in their gardens. They were giving it loads. So there was a little concern. A lot of people were worried, like, this guy could actually get in. But I wasn't shocked at all about this. I'm a bit shocked that it's gone back the other way. I really thought Trump was going to win. And I still think he might. But there is that element on. Definitely, New Yorkers definitely feel there was kind of a bit left out. But New York feels like that all the time anyway. And I feel that about New York. Like, New York shouldn't be in a lot of this stuff. We're like a little country of our own in comparison with all this, like, with all the loans and with all the different stuff. There shouldn't be a comparison. New York is just a different animal altogether.
Trump is 9-4 on with Paddy Power at the moment. Joe Biden is 9-5. You could have got Trump around about 2-1 2 weeks ago. So you can see the impact that and just how short he is now. That's to be next president. And there's a good chance that he loses this election and might also still be the next president because of what he's just said that they're going to do. I don't really know politically how you can just make the Supreme Court decide that you're going to stop counting votes, but it'll be very interesting to see exactly what happens. So it brings a lot of uncertainty, Johnny. Just that point about living in New York, do you, like, and feeling separated from the rest of the country, does this have any impact on day-to-day life, really, for the citizens of New York?
I would say it's having more of an impact on your actual social circles. I've literally seen friends fighting, and I mean Irish friends, and like work colleagues having full-on arguments over this, because without showing whatever way I declare, whatever way the people declare, the common feeling in New York among businessmen, and I can say this because I do know from research with just even among friends, and this will sound mad to a lot of people, a lot of us wanted Trump back in because of what he does for small businesses. And yes, that might seem selfish, and it might seem this, oh, think with your heart, think with your pocket, but it's been such a horrible 7 months for the whole world, but especially for us, and especially for every small business. So you have people that are in the business arguing with the boss, like, and the boss will be fighting towards Trump, and they're looking, but you were never a Trump, you were never a Republican. It's a whole new game changer. So I've never seen it. And I used to hear this, oh, it's caused such a divide. I didn't care. I was living in New York all these years. This is the first time I totally agree with them. That is the feeling in New York. You literally can't talk. I drove down Fifth Avenue 2 Sundays ago, and I seen all them pickups coming down. I was shocked that I drove in on it by mistake, and all them pickups with the Trump flags, you've seen them in the last few days surrounding the Biden bus. They were in Manhattan. But one of them stopped at the lights, and there's 3 kids walking across the road, and they start picking up pace running across the road, and one of them just smacks the back of the truck. There's so much of that going on. There's so much of just constant bickering and fighting among people. And this is literally only the start of it now, the way he's going on. It is going to be mayhem, whether it be even physical mayhem on the streets or something. But the divide and the argument that this is going to cause forever. And how long is he going to drag this out for?
Months and months. Like, the Supreme Court is obviously a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Like, so.
But there is something that they had in place that no matter what way it goes, I remember from 2000, you have to have a result within 2 weeks. Like, they need somebody by the 1st of December or whatever it is. So he's changed every other rule up to now. Why won't you change this one? I'm not surprised, but I don't know. They've all been gearing up for this. The Democrats are gearing up for it too. They probably felt with Al Gore back in 2000 that they gave in a bit too easy anyway. So they've been gearing up for this as well. Nobody's really surprised that it's coming to this. It's just when you hear him on the stage saying it, he literally is mad when it comes to this kind of stuff. You can't but laugh at him.
Yeah, except it's like very important because so many lives depend on it, and also it sets the tone for.
Unbelievable.
It sets the tone for relations between races. It sets the tone for relations between countries, and you know they also have the nuclear code. So it's bizarre. Like, the polling suggested that there would be a clear-cut victory for Biden, and in that instance, you can see how it would have been relatively straightforward. But clearly, some people were still unwilling to talk to pollsters and say that they were as proud Trump voters as that core group, who probably make up the vast majority of them. And then there's those floating voters who are still lying to pollsters, saying, "Oh no." But maybe that all changes now as well.
There is that element of shame. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, if you were a long-time Republican, you can't stand by and say you're a Trump fan. But a lot of these people that voted, they didn't vote for Trump. It's a bit like the Hillary case. They didn't like the idea of what Biden was saying and what they were talking about, bringing in socialism and all this type of thing. And people kept banging that drum. So as you say, they just either didn't tell the pollers or whatever they did. And a lot of these votes that we're seeing in some of the places, the TV stations are comical as well. Like, you could go to CNN and they'll tell you one thing. You go to Fox, we all know that, but it's literally funny how bad they were. But they were saying some of them were counting early votes first. So anyone that has voted for the last couple of weeks, and they generally think that was going to be the Democrats, that was all towards Biden, and then the other places are going this way. But I think Trump really just wanted a close. I think he just wanted a close race there so he could do this. If it had been a landslide, he'd have had no choice, and the Republicans wouldn't have backed him. He would have had to just leave. I'd say he's borderline happy with this. This is the kind of anarchy he wants. Like, he'd rather have this than it's either a win or this. You know, he just wants it nice and close so he could at least do this. This is the second best option for him anyway.
Yeah, so just if you were waking up this morning wondering what happened, It's decided by 3 states, and there's a very clear path for Biden to get to the 270 electoral college votes that he needs to be declared president. There's a very clear path too for Trump just to win this thing. You would expect that if Trump thought he was going to win this thing, that he wouldn't have come out and made the bizarre speech that he's just made, where he said he's going to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
No one's quite sure why he's going to the Supreme Court, because he hasn't lost the election just yet. But it seems like he wants counting of votes to stop, which would be a remarkable thing for anybody in a democracy to say, no, your vote can't be counted for some made-up reason. So certainly a lot of people trying to read into that speech. It's remarkable. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like this before. Look, Johnny, we let you get some sleep. I don't know how much sleep anybody's going to get in the States tonight, given that...
you can't.
Yeah, I'd say...
It's too hyper.
I'd say everybody's a little bit hyper. So from any other takeaways from the rest of today?
No, it'll just be interesting to see now what way it does go now, and hopefully with the city. That is the biggest concern. Okay, it's all very fine being boarded up, but there's a lot of business that are still open and they're trying to border up. Like, so how does that work? And it's just, it is sad because, again, I don't want to go back down the road again. A lot of people are on the welfare and they can get money and they're paying bills. This city is full of Spanish people that are illegal. They're undocumented, been living here for 20 years. This must be terrifying for them because they think of ICE, they think of immigration, they think of their jobs, they think of everything. So it's them I would feel for really at the moment. That's pretty much it anyway, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. Well, is the plan now just to lock yourself into the pub and pour out a few stiff drinks for as long as you possibly can?
Well, I had a couple of Trumpers text me earlier before Arizona had confirmed, and they were like, oh, open up the pub, I want to come in and have a Guinness. And they were really happy about it, you know. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if you were watching it live, but I happened to be watching it on Fox, and Fox were in the middle of it going through the map, and they were like, and then Arizona just switched, and the shock on their face. And equally like that, I haven't heard from any of them Trumpers since on my phone. So I'm not sure what way that'll work, you know.
Well, I'm sure there's some Irish people
There could be a lot of people moving home.
And finding lock-ins, I'm sure, no doubt. Johnny, great to have you with us.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Thanks a million.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
You too, guys. Bye-bye. Talk to you soon.
Johnny Kennedy there, friend of the show. The Long Hall in Manhattan is one of the Manhattan pubs we wholeheartedly recommend on this show. And we've been chatting to Johnny over the last couple of months about the situation just generally there in the West Coast and the East Coast as they've been dealing with COVID and all the rest. Okay, 0879 180 180 is the number. We'd love to hear from you around the world, wherever you are this morning. We can all give each other a little bit of comfort, I think, by reminding ourselves that there is other things in the world apart from the US presidential election. And Phil's going to tell us about some of them. Phil.
Yeah, good morning, Ger. We're going to start with the Sligo story. Obviously, this came overnight that they've become the first team to give a walkover in the football championship due to COVID-19. So they've been forced to concede Saturday's Connacht semi-final to Galway after several members of their panel tested positive for the virus. A statement from the county board last night said they've taken the tough decision to withdraw from this weekend's game, adding that the players and management are hugely disappointed at the unavailability of postponement. GAA President John Horan had said earlier this week that COVID-related postponements would only be considered for All-Ireland semi-finals and finals, given the tight schedule and the lack of free weeks. So Galway now go straight into the Connacht final. They'll play Mayo or Roscommon on Sunday the 15th of November. That Mayo-Roscommon semi-final takes place this weekend. Liverpool and Manchester City are both firmly on course to reach the last 16 of the Champions League. Both have 3 wins from 3 in their respective groups. Liverpool with an emphatic 5-0 win away to Atalanta, and once again Jota was on fire. He scored a hat-trick. He's only the second Liverpool player to score in his first 2 starts in the Champions League. The other, a certain Robbie Keane in 2008. Mo Salah and Sadio Mane were also on target as Liverpool ran riot. Their next opponents, Manchester City, also maintained their perfect start in Group C with a 3-0 win at home to Olympiacos. Gabriel Jesus came off the bench to score on his return from injury. The other goals coming from Ferran Torres and João Cancelo. Some of the other stories from last night: Real Madrid beat Inter Milan 3-2. They were 2-0 up in that game. Inter got it back to 2-2 before Real got the winner, and they needed it given how tight things are in that group. Holders Bayern Munich won 6-2 away to Salzburg. Now, they scored 4 goals in the last 10 minutes. Finished 1-1 between Lokomotiv Moscow and Atletico Madrid. This game probably going to be remembered, though, for Luis Suarez getting booked. Why was he booked? He gets booked regularly, but he got too close to the VAR monitors. The referee looked at a decision and the ref decided to book him. Tonight, Manchester United can move one step closer to the knockout stages. Obviously 15th in the Premier League, but 2 wins from 2 in Group H so far. They've obviously beaten PSG and RB Leipzig, and tonight they're away to Istanbul Başakşehir. That game in Turkey kicks off at 5-6. In Group E then, Chelsea host Rennes at Stamford Bridge from 8 o'clock. Frank Lampard's side of 4 points from their opening 2 games in that group. Shamrock Rovers will get their hands on the SSE Airtricity Premier Division trophy for the first time in 9 years tonight. Stephen Bradley's side plays St Pat's in their final home game of the season. That game at Tallaght Stadium kicks off at 7:45. Rovers have reminded fans not to gather outside Tallaght Stadium due to the level 5 coronavirus restrictions. And finally, Diego Maradona has had successful surgery for a bleed on the brain, according to his PR team. They said that the operation took place at a private hospital less than a week after his 60th birthday, and they described the surgery as all successful, adding that it happened as expected.
All right, fingers crossed for that. OTBAM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. All week here on the show, if you're watching or listening live, we have a brilliant competition running for you. It's the opportunity to pick up the brand new Irish football jersey. And are these officially in the shops today, I think? Anyway, you can order them on faishop.com. It's all thanks to Umbro, who are the new, again, official kit sponsors of the FAI. They've a long-standing relationship going back ages now. And this is the first time since 1990 you're going to be able to buy a Republic of Ireland shirt without a sponsor's logo on it. So I know a lot of football fans really want these jerseys because, you know, that's what they wanted. There's like a nice leaning back on tradition for you, but I'm fairly sure there's going to be a sponsor's logo on it sooner rather than later, so you want to get your hands on it pretty quickly. It does look great. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning today is text us on 087 9 180 180 and make sure that you include your name and the name of this person.
We were beaten by a far better team. Out-fought, out-battled, tactically we were second best.
That's a tough one.
We were beaten by a far better team. Out-fought, out-battled, tactically we were second best.
Going to talk to them on the show tomorrow, actually. Officially available to buy in the shops tomorrow. You can get your hands on them first here with us. So all you got to do is text 087 9 180 180 on WhatsApp. Send us his name and your name, and you'll be on the chance of winning it. Phil, Diego Jota.
Wow.
Not a bad signing.
No.
Now, hang on. Let's not all get carried away here just yet, right? He is joining one of the great teams, and they are running teams ragged at the moment. Is he helping them to do that, or is he the beneficiary of a team that's brilliant? I'm just trying to, like, you know, not get too carried away here.
I think it's a bit of both. Obviously, there's no doubt that Firmino's form has dipped. You know, as the last few seasons have gone on, his lack of goal, like his goal scoring tally has dipped. Even when he came on last night, he had a really good chance to play Mane in, and he decided to shoot and it got blocked. And I wonder, was that down to the fact that he had just watched Jota score a hat-trick and thought, you know, I need to start scoring more goals here? But the argument for the front three of Liverpool over the last few years has always been, how do you get players to Liverpool that will be willing to maybe have to sit on the bench because they'll know that they can't break into the front three? Now, Jota, when they signed them, obviously Liverpool fans were on a high because the Thiago deal had been done that day, and that was the main one. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, it's like, oh, this deal for Jota's coming in and about 40 million. But you looked at him and you thought, he's 23, he plays in a really good Wolves team. Now, they obviously play a different system, they don't have as much of the ball. So now we're seeing what he's like playing in a team that has more possession and create more chances because he gets more of the ball. And he looked on it from the very first minute. He nearly scored a sensational goal in the first couple of minutes, but his hat-trick was so impressive. The first goal, obviously, you know, he dinks it with his left foot. He's shown that he's a very two-footed player. At times he dribbles with his left foot. The second goal is just, when it was dropping over to Gomez, played the ball over, I actually thought when it was coming to him, I thought Jota's going to hit this first time, but took the touch with his left foot and then smashed it in with his right foot. And even the third goal just takes it around the keeper and knocks it in. So just, this is exactly what Liverpool needed. You know, a bit of a freshening up. Obviously, Thiago was brought in to give them something different in midfield, and Jota's now given them something different in attack, because even if Mane was injured, Jota could play on the left. Obviously, he showed last night he can play through the centre, and then he obviously could play out on the right if Salah was left out of the team. Different player to Firmino in the fact that he, obviously is more dangerous running in behind defences. He can drop deep as well. Obviously, he's probably not as creative as Firmino in that position. But yeah, certainly Liverpool fans are excited by him. And as I said, he's only 23. So if this is what he's like now, surely he's only going to get better.
Owen's been asking the question, can they all four play together?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can play the 4-2-3-1, which then allows you to play Jota on the left, and you can tends to go with Salah on through the centre. But do you know, maybe last night showed that you could play Jota through the centre and you play Salah, keep him out on the right, because if you're playing Salah through the centre, what he's tended to do then maybe is put Mane out to the right, but Mane I think is always best on the left. So yeah, this is a chance for them to play. But also what we've always talked about as well is the drop off in standards when one of the front three is missing. Whereas in the last few seasons, Origi's had to come in, or Shaqiri obviously has had to play. So now you've got no drop off there. I mean, some people would argue last night that that front three was better than the front three with Firmino in it. So that and Klopp said it after, it's not a selection headache, it's a great problem to have, especially going into such a big game on Sunday.
When you talk about all those different formations you can play with the four involved, with the three involved, when I'm talking about the attacking players, obviously, it does feel that in both of those scenarios, Roberto Firmino is on the outside looking in, or at least his influence is being hampered, whether it is a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. Yeah,
but I think Firmino hasn't looked as sharp in the first few weeks of the season, but he's played a lot of football. Like, he was there before Mane and Salah arrived. You know, with Firmino, he works his socks off. So maybe a little bit of a rest. Maybe just taking a bit of the pressure off him, knowing that, because a lot was made of him last season not scoring a league goal at Anfield until the very end of the season. So maybe this takes a bit of the focus off him and he can come back in and he'll be a bit more relaxed. Now, I mean, on the other side of the coin, you could say now he's looking at his position in the team and thinking, there is no role for me unless I get my act together. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of reaction it gets. But I think one thing from Jurgen Klopp's point of view is it takes the pressure off, knowing that if Firmino doesn't have a good game or he takes him out of the team, that Jota will slot in perfectly. I mean, that performance last night was you're not going to see many better performances from an individual player in the Liverpool team this season.
Imagine if they'd signed Ismaila Sarr instead of Diogo Jota. I don't quite think we'd be sitting here having the same conversation around Liverpool's shiny new thing up front.
No, and Sarr was one of those players that, you know, could have played anywhere across the front three. But Jota, you know, Michael Edwards obviously has done his homework on Jota, and as I said, Wolves are a different team. They play a different formation, and he wasn't actually getting into the team at the end of last season. But the beauty of playing for Liverpool is if you miss a chance, you're going to get another one soon enough. Yeah. Whereas with Wolves, they play counter-attacking football, and my God, it's effective. But sometimes you miss that chance and you might get another one for 10 minutes, whereas Jota was just lively for the whole game and had a few other chances as well. So, yeah, it bodes well, and I said it gives opposition teams something different to think about, especially if you'd imagine, like, it's very hard to leave him out on Sunday. Now, he came off with a bit of a knock, but I'd say he'd run through a wall to get into that team on Sunday to play Manchester City.
So what are we saying then? Daniel Podence and Pedro Neto would score 4 or 5 goals for that Liverpool team?
Well, Podence is only just starting to find his feet in terms of goal scoring for Wolves, but no, I think, as I said, Liverpool have got a player now that they can keep in their squad for, as I said, 23. You look at the other front three, you know, late 20s. So
maybe you cash in for 200 million on Salah to Real Madrid next summer?
Well, Salah was excellent last night as well. That goal he scored kind of reminded me a little bit of the one that he scored against Arsenal a few seasons ago at Anfield, where it came from a corner. Now, that game against Arsenal, he didn't have to check back in because he just ran straight through and put it in the net. But, you know, he ran the field. And I think one thing watching the game last night as well, I've tended to watch games with crowd noise on, but the game was on RTE, so they didn't have crowd noise, and it was very evident. Just obviously, if anyone wonders what Jordan Henderson brings to Liverpool, if they haven't discovered it by now, but he basically runs the show in terms of, you know, he is the voice of that team. He keeps things going in terms of the pace, but also Salah missed a few chances. You can hear like just how much it annoys him when he misses chances. And I thought even, like, we haven't even talked about Rhys Williams, and that's probably just...
Well, I did want to ask about two other things. About Rhys Williams, and also Curtis Jones is now starting big away games in the Champions League. When did that happen?
Yeah, like he obviously came in, he played the Ajax game, but it didn't go too well for him. But I think the explanation after that game was that he was a late inclusion. But he started off a little bit tentative last night, a few loose touches, but then grew into the game and he was excellent. And again, you have to remember this lad is still a teenager, and Rhys Williams obviously still a teenager. Trent Alexander-Arnold, who set up the first goal for Jota, is still in his early 20s. So you've got such a blend of youth and experience in that Liverpool team. But Curtis Jones, the general feeling before the start of the season was with Lallana gone, Curtis Jones would kind of fill that role in where, he would start games. He wouldn't start the big games. But I think the beauty of this for Liverpool now is they have gone to the last group game the last couple of seasons. You think the last season they had to go to Salzburg and get a draw. The season before they had to beat Napoli in the final day, and they did. But you think back to the save that Alisson had to make from Milik late in that game. So Liverpool are now one win away from wrapping up qualification. So they play Atalanta at Anfield after the international break, win that and they're through, and they can rest players for the last couple of group games. And that's a position they haven't been in the last couple of seasons. And that's where the likes of Curtis Jones might get some more game time. In terms of Rhys Williams, top position he did very well, looks very calm, and the fact that we're not talking about how he played really says it all. Now, Liverpool were that good that, okay, they could have actually conceded a goal or two. Zapata hit the woodwork, thought it was in, had a few chances, but again, it showed last night the difference Alisson makes. That I know since Liverpool lost that game 7-2 to Aston Villa, the response has been excellent. They should have beaten Everton in the Merseyside derby. Obviously, they've come from behind to beat Sheffield United and West Ham in Premier League games. They've won 2 Champions League games. So, yeah, I think and they've won 3 Champions League games. Sorry, since that Everton or that Villa game. So, yeah, it's looking a lot better than it did a few weeks ago. But obviously, the big test is going to come on Sunday. All right,
Phil, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. It is 7:57 here this morning. Pardon me, on OTBAM. 087 918 180 is the number if you want to get in touch with us. We'll be back with the sports pages after this.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. Off the ball.
Going from Man United, where like my kit smells like roses, to 18 months later playing for Barrow, where it's like you wash your own kit and who do you think you are, was probably the biggest shock in my life at that stage.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
To be honest with you, I don't think Gareth fancies Grealish. I mean, it's his opinion. It's a game of opinions. Glenn might not fancy. We've all got opinions on players. But I personally don't think Gareth... I think the worst thing that happened to Gareth, possibly, was Grealish coming in. I think he'd had Grealish thrown at him. And I don't think he's a big Grealish fan. And I think he sort of played him the other week in the international. Was it Wales? When he got man of the match and he played ever so well. And he probably would have been the other way. I think Gareth would have been quite happy if he'd have had a nightmare. And that's the end of Grealish. But I think that's the feeling I get. I don't think he is for Gareth. But I think, as Glenn said, what Villa have done there, they've made him captain. The lad Smith's done well. He's made him captain, made him feel important. And he runs the games for Villa. And he is a special talent. He can do things that other people can't do. I'm a big fan of his personally. I love people that can play.
The all-new OTB Sports app. It's all videos, sports news, live scores, interviews, podcasts, all waiting for you. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Bang on 8 o'clock this morning for you. Harry Redknapp and Glenn Hoddle there at our latest remote Cadbury Roadshow, our fourth so far in an absolutely brilliant series. We're going to be bringing you the full show across the OTB YouTube channel and the OTB Sports app this week, so subscribe or download the app to make sure you don't miss it. Let me tell you what's on the homepage of otbsports.com. It is Sligo not fielding a team for Connacht's semi-final with Galway. And that's kind of news that's broken overnight. FAI have been firefighting since March 2019. It's the challenge for the new FAI CEO, who technically started his job on Sunday. Advanced mark and insult to anyone who's ever kicked a point. Jim McGuinness in flying for him last night on off the ball. Wenger was mind-blowing. Hoddle talking about his time in Monaco. And I forgot that Glenn Hoddle was actually working with Harry Redknapp when Harry Redknapp was the QPR coach. And then the scariest day ever, Glenn Hoddle and Harry Redknapp on Hoddle's heart attack. So loads of great stories coming from that. Actually don't have the newspapers to run them through you for right now at the moment. But Owen, we'll talk a good bit more detail later on about the Sligo-Galway game and the fact that it's being cancelled. It's a very difficult situation for everybody to be in this morning, where Sligo can't field a team, Galway aren't going to have a game, and people are calling into question the integrity of the championships. I'm not one of those people calling into question the integrity of the championship. It's like just happy that we're getting what we can away, and it's not going to work out for everybody. In this instance, it hasn't worked out for Sligo. That's like, am I being too reasonable there?
No, I think it is very hard to be overly critical of teams who are affected in this way, for them to actually pull out. I think it's fair enough maybe. There was maybe a case in the last round of the National League to point criticism towards Longford and them not fulfilling a fixture against Cork. That's just an example. And there may be, reasons for them doing that, but we know the reasons for Sligo not fulfilling this fixture. It's because they've got a multitude of positive tests in their squad. You would have to imagine that, given all the work that every inter-county team does, that they feel that they actually just can't field the team this weekend, that they feel that there is no hope of them actually giving any account of themselves, never mind a good account of themselves this weekend. And I don't know, I would kind of lean towards that as well, where I would take what they're saying at face value. I mean, this is not something where you can blame anybody for having positive tests. You can't blame anybody for taking the positive tests extremely seriously.
No.
And we're very lucky to have... Yeah, we're very, very lucky to have games in the first place, and we're very lucky that that there will hopefully be a Connacht final being played. And there's for me there is no calling into question of the integrity of the competition whatsoever. I'm not even sure if that's what you said. I'm getting mixed up almost between the integrity of the competition, the integrity of the election. All these things are melding into one this morning. But when it comes to the integrity of the All Ireland Championship, I mean that's already flawed with its imbalance in the quality of the provincial championships and all that. So Sligo pulling out doesn't necessarily affect that in any way, if that's what anybody's suggesting this morning. I'm sure there's going to be more clarity over the next couple of days, but for me, if they feel that they literally can't field the team because of COVID, that's fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. And look, the competition has to go on until the point where it's semi-finals and you realise, OK, there is a little bit of wiggle room here, and if it has to go after Christmas, then let it go. The back page of the Herald, Diego Jota is on the back page of all the papers. 3 and easy. Jota hits hat-trick as Poole demolished Atalanta, and then Sligo on battle against COVID. That story. It was very late last night that we finally got confirmation. I did want to just talk about 9 dubs out of the blue. Conor McKeown, Jim Gavin, Declan Darcy, Jason Sherlock, Paul Clark, Jack McCaffrey, Diarmuid Connolly, Owen O'Gara, Bernard Brogan and Darren Daly, all not part of the Dublin team, who still nestle comfortably, snugly at number 1 in your power rankings, Owen. I just think you're not taking into account any of the evidence, and I wonder what your motivation is. That's all.
You can criticise my motivation all you want, and all the insidious things that are informing my power rankings, because of course my power rankings are unbelievably corrupt, as everybody knows. The Dubs are going to be fine. They've won 2 games. Everything is fine.
We'll see. OK, it's just coming up to 4 minutes past 8 this morning, and we turn into the football from last night. I'm delighted to say Mark Lawrenson is with us. Mark, good morning to you. How are you getting on? Oh, I think we've got Mark there. Mark, try again. Mark, how are you? Good morning. We'll come back to him in just a moment. I'll run you through the back of some of the rest of the papers. The Independent, slightly later to print there. Sligo set to forfeit Galway game due to COVID impact. That has now come to pass. Stander eager to extend Munster's stay despite limbo over contract. We can come back to this in the rugby stories a little bit later on. And Dundalk fears allayed following terrorist attack in Vienna. So we have re-established contact. Mark Lawrenson, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. You?
I'm good. Yeah, we're all agog at what's going on in America, but sure, you know.
Sure.
Luckily, we have some football to take our mind away from. Diego Jota is pretty good at football. Did anybody really think he was going to be this good this quickly at Liverpool?
No, I don't think they did. I think we all knew that he was not just a good footballer, but also a very, very clever player. You know, his use of space, etc., was much appreciated by lots of coaches in the game and stuff. But no, I think it's a real kind of bonus that he's turned out this way. And I think, you know, we were looking at the start of the season and saying about the front three, the Mane, Salah, Firmino, and saying, look, you know, really looking at the replacements at the moment, there's nothing too special. And nobody, I mean, the signing of Jota came out of nowhere. Normally these things leak at least 10 days or even 2 weeks before, but we just heard Jota signing for Liverpool. We thought, wow. So he's been fabulous. I mean, I bet he can't believe himself. And I bet Jurgen Klopp must sit there in the quiet moments and think, whoa, have I done good business here or what?
Can I just play you this? This is David Myler, who was on the show earlier on in the week. And when people get things right, we like to praise them for it. So
sure.
This is fairly prescient stuff from young Myler. Have a look at this.
Like this, Liverpool's front three have been untouched for, you know, the last 3-4 seasons. Yeah. But now Jota, there's question marks now. Can Jota start? Do we accommodate and put Mane or Salah through the middle and, you know, swap and change and then fit Jota in to drop Firmino? Liverpool have never had that problem because it has always been that front three. But now, I suppose if every Liverpool fan loves watching Firmino play, he's fantastic at what he does. Like, in my opinion, he's one of the best in the world at what he does. But at the same time, I have to be realistic. He's not scoring enough goals. Like, for a striker that's playing in a team that's winning, he needs to be scoring double digits every season, and he's not getting enough goals.
And all of a sudden, you've added these extra goals to the team. Mark, this Liverpool team have been great for 2.5 seasons. Like, really, truly great. That season they went toe to toe with Man City and just got touched off, and then they win the Champions League, and then they win the league. I didn't think they were going to be able to get any better, to be honest. Here, all of a sudden, they have, and they've strengthened, and it looks like even at centre back, they've discovered a kid who can play in the team. We're talking about a team now with potential to be an all-time great team that we talk about, like that great Barcelona side under Pep for that period of time. Your Liverpool team and this Liverpool team, they're getting to that level now where we have to start thinking, geez, this is amazing.
Well, I think they're getting close. I think we have to hang fire a little bit with them defensively because, you know, the couple of players that have come in have done well so far, but Sheffield United caused loads of problems. Villa caused loads of problems. You know, it's an awful long season, and I'm not decrying the boys who come in, but, you know, you have a couple of setbacks, lose a little bit of confidence, etc., and you never ever know. I mean, we're building there slowly. I mean, the Jota thing is just fabulous because now, you know, we've got 4 players for 3 positions, and I know about Egan and all those guys, but they're only ever going to really be on the bench and start occasionally. So the midfield's extremely good as well. So I would just wait for us defensively a little bit because you just never know. And I think the word's gone out in the Premier League that if you load the box against Liverpool, you're going to win loads of headers because we haven't, obviously missing Van Dijk, as everybody would know. We have nobody really particularly good in the air. So let's just wait and see. But obviously Portents are good at the moment.
For sure. Is another note of caution, I wonder, Mark, to do with the fact that Atalanta seemed to come into the game last night with a fairly astonishing lack of knowledge about how to actually set up against Liverpool. They were quite high in their line at times. We mentioned earlier on that Salah scored a goal which was akin to how he scored a goal against Arsenal last season, which was scoring from an opposition corner.
Sure.
Like, that was a very naive Arsenal side. It seemed Atalanta approached the game with a lot of naivety last night. Jota looks like one of the best signings ever. I'm not taking away from that whatsoever. But do you need a little bit of caution after opposition like Atalanta?
Yeah, you do. They just got it wrong. I think, you know, they've done fabulous when you think about Atalanta from where they've come from. But they're a very, very attacking team. And the manager obviously decided, look, we can go and attack these guys, especially with the absence of Van Dijk. You know, Liverpool were really strong at the back and sat in. And one thing about them is they can play you anyway. They can pressurise you, Liverpool, all the time, or they can break. And all the guys you've just spoken about, Salah and Mane and Jota, they've all got great pace. They're all very, very intelligent players. But the other thing as well is the team knows that they can sit in and one pass will play any of those three in at all times, which was exactly what happened last night. So a little bit of naivety against Atalanta, but look, you win 5-0 away against the Champions League. It doesn't matter if it's a dog and duck. It's still an outstanding win. And the other thing as well now is that's 3 wins, so that's 9 points. Maybe only another win. And in the last couple of games in the group, you can play Uncle Tom Cobbler and all because, you'll already be through, probably be leaders of the group as well. Take a little bit of pressure off one or two of the players who will be playing the majority of the games and the fixtures throughout the season.
The great thing as well is that we're going to have an answer to the question about what is Klopp's best team this Sunday because of the opposition. What way would you set up against Manchester City?
I think I would play Jota. I don't think what he's done and come in and the quality of his goals and the quality of his play and his awareness already of how Liverpool play and the two guys around him, I would play him. And I think, there's one thing about football at this level. People like, Firmino probably thinks week in, week out is an absolute shoo-in. Now he's having a little look around the dressing room and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm struggling for my place. And that's what you have to have. You have to have that pressure for places. You can't have people who just think week in, week out, regardless of how they play, they're going to be in the team. So I think Jota has to start. And I think, Klopp's, fantastic manager. And he'll be looking at it and thinking, look, if I leave him out, I might knock his confidence back completely. He deserves a place in the side. And the whole thing is if you get in the team and play extremely well, you don't get out. That's the first rule of football.
So where does he fit then? Does Firmino come back in with Jota playing in a 4-2-3-1, or is it same team 4?
No, I just had him look through the middle with obviously Salah and Mane either side. I think Firmino sits on the bench. It's football. That's the way it is.
At centre back, then there will be a similar question, I guess, in the short term about who is Joe Gomez's partner. Obviously, Rhys Williams has impressed. Nat Phillips has impressed. Again, same question to you. If you were picking a partner for Joe Gomez in the short term, who would it be?
Oh, what a question that is. Matip. Assuming
he's not fit.
Well, I think he is fit, is he not? Because is he not back in training?
He was on the bench last night.
Yeah, he was, of course he was. So I think I'll be playing Matip at Manchester City because you just need your experienced players who've played in games at the very highest level. City are very, very good going forward. And as good as the two young guys have been coming in, I would play your Matip all day long. And in the future, you never know. But just for that particular game, Matip and Gomez would start for me as the two.
How quickly does it take a centre-back to get back up to game readiness, Mark?
It's not like needing the sharpness to play. Probably certainly up front. Because a lot of the game, obviously, you're facing the player all the time. I don't think it's a great issue, and I think with Matip, although he seems to get a large number of injuries, he's very lean, he's very, very fit. So even after a long haul, you can come back and play your way through it. And, if you watch with these players when they come in centre backs, and after a long absence, they don't come off. They don't come off after 85 minutes or 70 minutes. They end up playing the whole game because the demands are different from obviously playing up front.
Yeah. And then in terms of the midfield for the game against City, there's been a lot of chopping and changing depending on who's been fit. And there kind of hasn't really been a situation yet where Klopp's had his full hand, where he's had to pick, OK, you're my recognised best three midfielders for a big game. Who do you think he plays on Sunday then?
Henderson, obviously. Wijnaldum, he absolutely loves Wijnaldum because Wijnaldum carries out his instructions, Klopp's instructions to the letter. Are we thinking Fabinho will be fit or not? I'm not sure. So Keita's in and around the team as well, isn't he? Who else have we got? Let me think.
He played Curtis Jones last night.
Yeah, Curtis Jones would be a big call again because it's Manchester City. And the strength of, the De Bruynes of this world, etc., in midfield. I think it's one of those where you just go for experience, assuming they're all fit and available. You will go for experience, and I think the Curtis Jones of this world you kind of bring them on in these games if obviously you need them.
Definitely. It felt like a fairly grim outlook for Liverpool injury-wise last week. But as you mentioned, Matip is back in training on the bench last night. Fabinho looks like he's going to be back after the international break. It looks a lot less grim than it was certainly this time last week. In terms of that impact off the bench then, the great thing about this culture that Jurgen Klopp has cultivated is that you're not going to have a strop. You're not likely to see that at any point. And it's kind of terrifying having an option like Roberto Firmino coming off the bench in a game of the magnitude of Manchester City and the big games that come thereafter.
Yeah, well, that's what you want. I mean, that's the strength in depth that they obviously tried to insist in with the owners in terms of the quality of the players. And, you know, as I said to you before, it's just that kind of thing where at the start of the season, you all come back, and then if you're not signed any players, everybody looks around and thinks, oh, this is all right, this is quite cosy, we're all going to play, you know, we know probably what the best team is. But all of a sudden, if you sign one or two players and bring them in, and you look at them and think, wow, you know, we've got some more quality here, it is completely different. And I don't know, if you look at, you'll have to go back to Sir Alex Ferguson probably, who would have been the best exponent of this in recent-ish years, which is just when players thought they were comfortable, he just bring all sorts of other players in. I mean, he did it famously one year. I think 3 of his better players, he just brought 3 different players in and said to the better players that he said, look, you know, you can stay, or if you want, you can go. I mean, what a statement that is. And I think if you get to that level of football where you can do such a thing, it's a massive, massive difference, because even the very, very best players, you know, have a look round the dressing room and think, am I going to play every week? Which is basically utopia for a manager at that level.
The Ferguson comparison is a good one, because it came to mind watching Jota last night as well, just about how Manchester United always seem to have such a great transfer record under Ferguson because the players they signed seemed to fit in seamlessly with what they were doing. How much of that is down to the manager and making a transfer look a lot better, or perhaps overperforming a little bit when they come into the side?
Well, I mean, the thing about the manager is you don't necessarily sign the best players all the time, but you sign the best player to play in the system that you want for the football club. I mean, you know, when you look at it, when Fergie signed Cantona, we all kind of thought, yeah, good player, but we thought he was a little bit of a rebel, and he obviously saw something in there which he thought, you know, when he comes to come and play for me, with all the outstanding players Manchester United have had, he will be even better. And that's exactly what happened. But I think, you know, the thing with Liverpool is a few years ago they had this committee of guys in terms of transfers, etc. And since Michael Edwards has basically taken over the role, I mean, the players that they brought in, I can only really look at Loris Karius and think he's the only player that didn't improve, that Klopp's actually not improved. And that's the other thing as well, is that once you get bringing the right players in all the time into a team that's already outstanding, you know, those outstanding players just bring these players on all the time. And the great thing now for Liverpool, I mean, look at the money they got, you know, people like Solanke, etc. So, you know, when you get to a stage where you just outstanding players all the time, you then start to make even more money in the transfer market, because some of the guys who are just on the edge of the first team on a regular basis, they go for big money because the demand is so high.
The Ferguson comparison also invites comparisons with how successful they were over a sustained period of time, and it feels like the way the league is working out, the game at the weekend is now absolutely massive, because there's an opportunity to put clear daylight between themselves and City, and previously when they've had that opportunity in recent seasons, they've taken it. Yeah, they have. I think this season is completely different though. We're not sure how long, obviously, teams are going to play without crowds, which is very strange and very eerie. When you go to them, I've been to one or two as well, which is just, it's a weird situation with you watching games, because they're just like kind of high-profile friendlies. But I think this season, I think it's going to be very, very close. I think there'll be 4 or 5 teams in with a shout of winning the league, of which Liverpool will be one. But, you know, we've only just started what we're doing. Is it 7 games in the league? Yeah. It's an awful long way to go. And you never, ever know, and you never wish it upon anyone, but sometimes you have a year where you just get lots of injuries, sometimes not really particularly serious ones, but muscle injuries, and you're forever chopping and changing one thing and another. But
Looks like obviously start of autumn and winter now as well. So, hey, we'll wait and see. But, I mean, at the moment, they've made a very, very, very good start. But you've got to keep it going. That's the thing. It's, as everybody knows, it's an absolute marathon.
And it's going to be an even longer one this year with all the games coming thick and fast. Mark, great stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Stay well. It's Mark Lawrenson there joining us this morning to give us his thoughts on a 5-0 win for Liverpool last night. OTBAM, live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Another opportunity to enter our Mystery Voice competition. Can you tell us who this is?
We were beaten by a far better team. Out-fought, out-battled, tactically we were second best.
If you can, text or WhatsApp us 087 9180 180 and courtesy of Umbro, official kit sponsor of the FAI. You can get the new sponsorless Irish football jersey right now at faishop.com. They've given us a couple to give away this morning, and all you got to do is tell us who that is. Text his name and your name to 087 180 180. Now let's talk hurling, because big games coming thick and fast at the moment in the hurling championship, and we didn't really get too much time to parse through the team in particular who got beaten at the weekend. I'm delighted to say Tommy Walsh is with us. Tommy, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Good morning, Ger.
We want to talk specifically about Cork and their performance last weekend. Last week on the show, we talked about Cork, and you laid out the case for the things that Cork needed to do to either win the game or just to impress on you that they were going in the right direction. And it was like they were playing a challenge match in many aspects, that they didn't do any of the things that you would expect a team, especially now, who looks at the template of all of the successful teams, which is hooking and blocking and tackling and defending from the front. They didn't do any of that.
Yeah, well, I suppose when you look at the difference what a year makes, Liam Cahill coming into Waterford, right from the very beginning, we knew what Liam Cahill brought. He dropped the two of their main players, Maurice Shannon and Noel O'Connor, for the last, probably 10 years. They've been the mainstay and main kind of, I suppose Maurice Shannon has a target man. I know he used to come on, but he was like Jim Gavin. They weren't really substitutes. They were kind of game changers, if you like. And that's the role Maurice Shannon played for a long time. You get the ball in long to him, get it in short. It didn't really matter. He could do it. Noel Connor is the same. He was captain at the time, had done it year after year. He produced the goods. And he was willing to drop these two guys. Because, most guys coming in, you'd say, hold on a minute now, we might need these lads. I don't want to rough it up too much. It's my first year as manager. I'm an outside manager as well. I want to keep everyone on side. No, Cal came in, set a start from the very beginning. And we've seen the difference. And, I predicted it myself in my own, head when looking at the game, that no matter what happens here Saturday, this Waterford team is going to be tough. They're going to be hard. They're going to be everything that Liam Cahill is. And that's what we've seen. So what am I trying to say really is that we probably shouldn't be too shocked in regards to Cork. You have to see it from the very start. It's not like a light switch where you're toddling along playing one style of hurling, and suddenly then on a particular day you can turn into this ferocious hooking and blocking machine, physical, everything that we've been speaking about. It has to be done from January. It has to be done from February, March. You have to change it from the very outset. And I suppose, we it was different this year with the pandemic. We didn't see a whole lot of hurling, but I wasn't after, seeing that and different, I suppose, a whole lot about the team. I know you have to pick probably particular players as well and set out a stall. So I just didn't think that it was probably going to happen with Cork. Now we have to look at as well, Ger, like everybody has their strengths, right? And everyone has their weaknesses. And you hear the whole, I suppose, team thrown out there about this Cork team, maybe that they're too soft or this or that. I don't buy into that. I just think it's a skill set that they need to acquire. And the example I give you would be Seamus Callan and TJ Reid. Like TJ Reid was one of these players, kind of like the Cork forwards. His whole focus was to go around scoring points, doing things, the most beautiful things you could do with a ball. That was his primarily focus. But that all changed around 2013 after he got that knee injury against Galway in 2012. From then on, he just totally dedicated himself to the gym, totally dedicated to himself just not on the ball, but off the ball as well. And we've seen he transformed himself from being, a very good hurler who was kind of on and off the Kilkenny team to one of the greatest hurlers now that has ever played the game. Seamus Callanan, last year, you go back to the first or second league game when they played against Clare, he chased a man from 40, 50 yards. There was no reason to do it whatsoever, and hooked the guy. And I just felt, and Seamus Callanan in his early years was a similar type player to TJ Reid in that he could do the most beautiful things with the ball, but rarely you would see him putting in that kind of a challenge, that kind of a tackle. And look at the consequences. Absolutely brilliant for both their teams, both Tipperary and Kilkenny. So, Ger, I think it's just a thing that is going to have to be trained into these Cork guys, but it's not going to happen in a week or two. It has to be done from January or February.
And there's no evidence that they've been working on this and that was a bad day. Like you predicted it in advance. Obviously, you hadn't seen anything in the league that suggested they had become a team who was going to adopt that skill set and tactic.
Sure, listen, there's no point that I could come out with statements here, all right, but I think that'd be guessing it to be bad punditry. We haven't seen them. Like, what did we see in the league? Only 2 or 3 games, I suppose. Like, so we have nothing to go on here, so I just don't know. The only lads that could really answer this is whoever's been looking at Cork training since they went back. They've all went off to their clubs. Like I seen Conor Lehane in a county final for Middleton, scoring 2-11, 2-12. Like, that's as tough and as hard as you can absolutely get. Like, we've seen what Horgan has done for Glen Rovers. We've seen what Harnedy has done for Immakilly. So these players have done it on the biggest stage, but I don't know. I'm not privy to what is going on in their training, but if they haven't been doing it in training, you can't expect it to happen in a match. And it goes back to the simple thing, and it's you can look at stats and hooks and blocks all you want. I think you use your own eyes, and you will know. If you see, I said it before the last match, if you were watching the Sunday game Sunday night, which I was only able to do, to be honest, Jerry, because I was at the doubleheader in Croker on Saturday, and if we see it on the Sunday game, one of these guys, Harnedy or Lehane or Horgan or Cadigan, running 20 yards, getting in a hook they shouldn't have got, a dive and block, maybe shovel out over the line. I just think that's the missing piece for them to go to them. Like, they have won Munsters. Like, this isn't a bad team. They have won a lot of games in Munster. They've won, I suppose it was a while ago now in 2013, they won that All-Ireland semi-final. But for them to go on and do what Cork want them to do, which is basically ultimately winning All-Ireland, I think that's the skill set they have to bring to their game.
That's fair enough.
How do you find that?
How do you find the training? So you'll have to introduce, you nearly want to be in a game, say a game type situation, because you can do the drills all you want, but that's merely to get yourself ready for the game. So maybe certain few, I suppose, them type drills in training, but ultimately it's the game in training. It's where you really see it, because I always find in a drill you're told go from A to B. So you're told, right, tackle, there's 2E in a tackling drill, tackle. You have no choice, you have to do it. It's you versus your man. You're an inter-county player, so you're going to have that mindset that, you're not going to just stand by your side and let your man win the ball. So in that type of a scenario, it's just maybe to get them into the habit, but the real learning curve is in the matching training. So this could be a case where you blow up the training after 5 minutes if you haven't seen what you want to see. So if Kieran Kingston is refereeing the training session, we'll say, and after 5 or 10 minutes he just sees guys going, not even going through the motions, but maybe just going around doing all these great runs, but with the ball. But if he's trying to implement this defensive, so it was always in our mindset, the defending started with number 15, who was probably our best defender in Taggy Fogarty. And that probably came from Brian Cody setting out his mantra, setting out that tone in training. So from minute 1 in training, if things weren't going well, and we could be scoring, like the TJs and the Henrys, they could be scoring left, right and centre. But if that ferocity off the ball wasn't there, training is blown up and you're told a few home truths. Sure, next thing, lads are hooking left, right and centre. I was looking at a movie there last night on... I didn't get to see the end of it because it was about 11:15, but when it was over, Miracle, about a US ice hockey team. I think it was, I don't know if it's a true story or based on a true story or whether it's just fictional, but listen, it was like what goes on in every dressing room. Basically, the coach came in after the first half of one of the games and just started kind of, one lad was lying on the physio bed. He had a sore knee, but basically it was just a sore knee. He asked the doctor, listen, if he goes back on, is he going to do further damage? No, he said, but he won't be able to play because it's too sore. So he went in and basically questioned your man's character. He said, listen, I know you won't be able to go back out there. You won't be able to go through your pain. As he was going back out the dressing room, he winked at the assistant coach. So let's see the reaction now. So second half went out. Your man was absolutely brilliant, tearing in there. So, that's what I'm getting at. It's mindsets. It's mind games, but setting the tone in training, really.
It is a true story, Tommy. It's the Miracle on Ice. The full reel game is available on YouTube. It's a good watch.
Yeah, great. It's great video. Looking forward to seeing the win it. I didn't see the end of it, so don't ruin it on me.
No spoilers, though. But it's called the Miracle on Ice, so hopefully that doesn't give away too much.
What can Cork do this week? They have a big game at the weekend, and they've got in a weird way, the way that Dublin came out of that game at half-time, it looked like they were going to be annihilated. They had a great second half, and they seemed to find something. So, not exactly who Cork would have wanted, a team who were coming out of a defeat actually quite confident.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'd say coming from where Cork are coming from, I would say the opposite. I'd say it's absolutely the game they needed. Like, what's the point in them, say, playing teams that they're much better than for the next couple of games and then getting steamrolled in an All-Ireland quarter-final or semi-final again? The recovery needs to start now. The soul-searching needs to start now. But really, the habits need to start now, Ger. So they're playing a team that, although they were beaten by a point or two by Kilkenny, their probably confidence levels are probably gone through the roof because of that second half. They now know that Eamon Dillon has to start. Like, he was brilliant. And Ronan Hayes, I thought, was brilliant when he came on as well, scored a fantastic goal. So their confidence is sky high. Donald Burke had another brilliant game from frees and, was roaming around. They weren't, Keane Ball and Sutcliffe, like that second half for all of those Dublin players. And it's usually the last game that you remember. So they have the hurt of losing, but the confidence of hurling so well in that second half. No one will question their character. Like, Matty Kenny can't question their character now. So now they're coming from, a low base at half-time in that game where, probably question what have they been doing for the last 2 or 3 years under Matty Kenny, to now seeing that they have that toughness, they have that skill, and most certainly they're able to beat any of the top teams. They proved that in Parnell Park against Galway last year. So I think this is the game that Cork needed. If they're to win this and maybe do a few of the things that we've been asking of them to do, well, it should only help them going forward because there's going to be huge challenges ahead for whether it's Dublin or Cork.
On the flip side, if Dublin were to win this, it would be an iconic victory for them against, one of the superpowers of the game. Granted, at a low ebb for them at the moment too. So big opportunity for Dublin this weekend.
It is a massive opportunity, and for Matty Kenny as well. I'd say there was no more a disappointed team than Dublin last year. You had the highs of Parnell Park after beating Galway. They had a brilliant league campaign that year as well. So everything seemed to be on the upper curve for Matty Kenny and his Dublin Charges. This year now, there's a few of the old school are missing. Conal Keeney's not playing, David Treacy, Paul Ryan. So all the guys that would have been relied on and probably people felt Dublin couldn't do without. Suddenly Matty Kenny, he's thrown in these new guys, new young guns, and they're producing the goods. They had a brilliant victory over Laois a couple of weeks ago, a brilliant second half performance the last day. So it'd be absolutely brilliant for either of them to win, really, Ger, because like both of them, they're not in the top 3 or 4, but a small team could get them there.
Who's going to win?
Cork.
Right, okay, straightforward. I want to play you this, right? It's Kieron Carey. We had him on the show, I think, on Monday morning, and it was unusual to hear somebody in the GAA world talk so effusively about their own team. Have a listen to this.
I kind of made a prediction in early 2018 what Dublin towards inter-county football, Limerick are and will be the same in hurling, and it's going that particular way. And I think there's a lot of teams out there actually struggling still, even in the last 2 years, how to prevent Limerick or what kind of a system to put in place that might suit them. You know, there's a lot of teams still struggling, and, you know, Limerick are 5 to 6 years perfecting and implementing the structure that they want to play. But not only that, you know, they're tweaking it every so often as well, as we saw that yesterday in positional switches.
Traditionally, in the GAA world, we talk down our own county. Owen there will explain the whole art of Yerraism, but Kieron Carey's having none of it. As good and as dominant as the Dubs, maybe.
The first rule of inter-county hurling, Ger, do not listen to the media. So I'd say John Kiley is hoping none of his players are listening to that over the last couple of days, because sure, listen, there's two sides of looking at that, really. The first thing is you don't listen to it. If you're inside that Limerick camp, absolutely not. You're only as good as your last game. Limerick looked all conquering, all dominant this time last year. Were turned over by Tipperary first in the last round of the round robin. They were turned over by Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final. The year before, they were turned over by Clare. The year they won the All-Ireland, they were turned over by Clare. I'd say it was down in Ennis by, I'd say it was 8 or 9 points. So this team can be defeated. And, you know, they would not want to buy into that mindset because there's always someone that will beat you. That Limerick team as well, they're absolutely brilliant and have been hurling brilliantly. But you look at their half hour line of we'll say it was, I know Keane Lynch was there the weekend, but Kyle Hayes, Garrod Hegarty, and who was the other wing forward? You have Garrod Hegarty, Kyle Hayes, and it escapes me there. I should know it, but Tom Morrissey. If one of them was to get injured, it would totally change the way Limerick have been playing. If you look at it, and I was watching it closely again the weekend, when their big players in the half-hour line get the ball, they're able to bring it into the tackle and go out through it. Even when Kyle Hayes is in the backs, they're able to be swarmed, because swarm is the name of the game at the moment. You're tackling 3s and 4s. They're able to bring it out of them tackles. If they got 1 or 2 injuries to that half-hour line or midfield, they're a total different team. So listen, John Kiley is the very same as Cody, the very same as Sheedy. These guys are too clever for that. They will keep the guys in the camp well away from all that media stuff. But no, I wouldn't buy into that they can dominate for the next few years. There's too many good teams out there. What I would say is about Kieron Carey, and it's probably, I haven't heard too many inter-county hurlers talk about either, is the impact that an ex-inter-county hurler can have on your team. You know, some of them go down the road of giving out about their own team. Some of them praise them. I definitely think you do hear it back when you're inside in that bubble. You do hear about the ex-player, whether he praised you or whether he was giving out about you. You can use it as motivation or confidence. And I think it's very important. And Kieron Carey has never been anything, because I've been at 1 or 2 functions down in Limerick over the last few years as well. He's never been anything but complimentary to this squad. And this is a man that hasn't, you know, he went to the height, you know, to the Mount Everest nearly of hurling personally himself. But as a team, they never got over the line. They were so unlucky. And he could have been bitter over that, but was he? No. He got behind this Limerick team before the $1 earned. He praised them. He gave them confidence. He puts everyone into his own club patch as well. And I think that's huge for not just Kieron Carey, but Gary Kirby, all the ex-Limerick players. It's huge, and it gives you a huge confidence as a player. Like in our time, before we met it, we'll say Eddie Kerr was the man. Everyone in Kilkenny loved Eddie Kerr. He was the god. He was the man that done it all, both individually and as a team. Won 6 or 7 All-Irelands, won Hurlers of the Year, All-Stars, won it all. And he never had anything but praise. Remember 2012, Galway beat us in the Leinster final. And we were all being written off after the game. And we had a championship game against Ballyhale the following week down in Dunnamaggin. And I was playing, I think it was midfield. And after being, very poor in the Leinster final, a much better game this day. And Eddie Kerr came over to me after the game, at a club game, hand around the shoulder, you still have it, you're still hurling brilliant, don't worry about last Sunday, and on you go. And, it was an unbelievable lift. and definitely gave me huge confidence going into the next few weeks. I think we played Limerick in the championship, and it's that kind of a thing for the ex-hurler when he's backing you. It is brilliant. And even when we lost the county final 2 years ago against Great Ballycallan, I was outside the library there outside Super Valley, the shopping centre there in Kilkenny, if you didn't know it, in Kilkenny, and Joe Hennessy comes over, arm around the shoulder, a few great words of encouragement. The ex-inter-county hurler is just what I'm trying to say. He has a big impact on the team, and although what Harry said, listen, I don't know about him being dominant for the next few years. Yes, they have the potential to be, but it's all about the next game, the Munster final. And but I'm sure it is great. His encouragement definitely gives great confidence to that panel.
Yeah, no doubt. Tommy, we're out of time, unfortunately. I could spend the next hour talking about Joe Hennessy quite happily, because he was my favourite hurler as a kid, and I can only imagine how confident you must have felt when he's coming over and saying, well, you've still got it, kid. I would be like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So listen, congratulations on that. Now, I don't mind about the All-Stars and the All-Irelands. Joe Hennessy thinking you still got it, man. That's all that counts. Tommy, good stuff. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Brilliant. Good luck. Bye.
Tommy Walsh giving us some thoughts there about the weekend's hurling and what's coming up. It is, 8:40 here this morning, and it's OTBAM. The race for the US presidency is entering a crucial stretch at the moment. The other thing that's happening, obviously, the Senate vote is happening, and there had been some suggestions that there might be a blue wave where the Democrats get control of the Senate. It looks like they're not going to get control of the Senate. So even if they do win the presidency, it looks like American politics is going to be landlocked for the next couple of years anyway. And whether or not they win the presidency, I don't know about that, because at the moment Trump is 9-4 on to win with the bookmakers. That was the last time I checked after he made his speech. And it was a wild speech that will go down in history. You can be guaranteed that speech is going down in history. Let me just check the very latest odds. Still trying to process that. 15-8 on now. So the odds of he's still odds on, but he's not as odds on as he was. And Biden's tightening up a bit to 6-4. It's not. It's probably closer to 50-50 in reality about what might happen, because Trump is already saying he's going to the Supreme Court, which suggests they don't think he's going to actually win.
It's going to be, I think, morning Eastern time before we get a good bit more clarification on something like Pennsylvania for the next little while. They're obviously starting to count, or there was going to be a much bigger influence of mail-in ballots there over the next little while, and that's obviously going to be a key state over the next bit. You wonder, can the Supreme Court proceeding last for 4 years? Could we just be in a state of purgatory for the next 4 years, to a point where even if Donald Trump loses, he actually won't get to the point where he has to accept it because a Supreme Court judge has ruled against him?
No, it can't last 4 years. They'll need an answer pretty quickly. But what a great job they've done of stuffing the Supreme Court recently. So, I'm sure not to cast any impunity on the Supreme Court justices of the United States, but look, it is what it is. The 2020 GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Championships are underway, and to celebrate Super Value as part of their Support Where You're From campaign, have given us some great prizes to give away. Dig out your favourite ticket stub, match programme, jersey, photo with your hero, any GAA-related item of nostalgia that you're dying to tell the country about. Make a 20-second video explaining its significance. Get them into us on any OTB social channel or on WhatsApp on 0879 180 180. We'll choose a winner every Friday during the championship. Each weekly winner lands a €200 Super Value voucher, and also the chance to star in Super Value's Super Fans series, a fly-on-the-wall peek inside the homes of dedicated supporters around the country. Super Value are proud sponsors of the GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Championships. Check out facebook.com/Super Value Ireland for more details. Right. Will O'Callaghan, good morning to you. What's going on?
Morning, lads. How are you getting on? Sligo out of the championship without kicking a ball this year.
Yeah, not ideal, is it?
No, but I guess it was probably fairly inevitable when Fergal McGill spoke a few weeks back, Ger, and he said that unless there was going to be a 2-week window which would be available for a postponement, the championship would just rock on if a team were to be affected by COVID-19 and they were unable to fulfil a fixture. We've had this happen a couple of times in hurling so far with Sligo and with Offaly in the Christie Ring, but because there was 2 weeks between the first round and then the quarterfinals of the championship, effectively a backdoor was available for those teams to be able to not fulfil a fixture, but for their championship not to end. But the nature of the football championship, given that it's straight knockout and given that theres a Connacht final up for grabs on the 15th of November, it meant that just the numbers wouldn't work for Sligo to be able to be granted a postponement. And unfortunately for them, they're not going to be part of Championship 2020.
I don't see any way around that really at the moment.
No, I think unless you're going to make a decision that, say an instance like this where a team has been heavily affected, and in Sligo's case, they're still awaiting for results from PCR rapid testing. Unless you accept that postponements can be given across the board, you then get into the question of how many exceptions can possibly be given and how long could the championship potentially be held up for. Again, Fergal McGill and John Horn, speaking earlier this week after the draw for the qualifiers, had indicated, Ger, that, potentially there might be enough of a gap when we get to the business end of the championship in terms of the All-Ireland, and say if it was to happen around a semi-final or a final, then at that point it could be possible to push things back, because there is an acceptance that the league is not going to start at the start of January. But at the same time, because there's still a lot of championship football to be played between now and when we get towards the end of the All-Ireland Championship, I think they probably have to take a stance that no exemptions can be made. But you would feel for Sligo in this, because they flagged it up obviously early in the week. They've been hit by this outbreak of COVID-19. And as their county board said in the statement last night, it's an extremely tough decision not to be able to field in the championship at all. Like, I'm sure some people will wonder, why can't Sligo just round up a random group of 20 players to step in for maybe the dozen or so who aren't available for this weekend? But I think you probably disparage the competition if you just decided to parachute in a bunch of club players on the week of a championship game to play it. And it would probably be very unfair on those players if, say, Sligo were to pull off an unlikely victory against Galway. Do you then tell those players that they have to disappear for the Connacht final because the other guys are back?
If they beat Galway, they're staying in the team. Like, you get the jersey, you did well, happy days. The rest of the lads, I mean, it would kind of throw into sharp relief the nonsense of training. But sure, look, we shouldn't get too much into that. Owen had a genius idea about what should happen this weekend if Sligo can't field. What was your idea, Owen?
I'm not sure it's a genius. Why not just reinstate Leitrim into the Connacht Championship? We don't have a backdoor. Why not just let teams who are already knocked out just take the places of the teams who don't want to play the matches, even if their cases are fully legitimate that they don't want to play the match, even if they can't play the match. Let Leitrim in. Justice for Leitrim is all I'm saying this morning.
Yeah, it'd probably be a lot smoother, Owen, if Leitrim had played Sligo in the last round. I did wonder about this, if, say, like, you could reinstate the team who were beaten on the pitch in the previous match. But this is all the more awkward because this was Sligo's first game of the championship. Leitrim were beaten by Mayo last weekend, so they're not directly involved on that side of the draw. It'd probably be a lot easier, say, if Sligo had won last weekend, and you probably have a strong enough argument to reinstate the team they beat.
Will, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. We have Shane Curran and David Brady joining us just after 9 o'clock, and we also have the Connacht GA CEO, John Prenty, coming up after 9 o'clock as well to talk us through how the decision was arrived at and the various logistics of keeping the competition going. A couple of quick comments. You're nothing but a charlatan, Mr. Sheehan. You alluded to Cork's form in the Super 8. They had Tyrone beat for 60 minutes. The Dubs searching for answers. I fully expect a Cork win on Sunday, and for you to fall on your sword and take Tyrone out of the top 10. Hashtag up the rebels. This is the
Cork I know and love.
And then Dennis Ryan says, am I missing something? Or did Limerick not lose 3 of 6 championship games last season? They look awesome right now, but steady on, lads. I think I'm in favour of Kieron Carey coming out and saying what he did. I think it's great. A little bit of self-confident trash talking. It's exactly what the GAA world has been missing. Famously, Dinny Allen, when he was managing the Antrim Hurlers, trash talked Cork, who then scored 7 goals against them the following week. So it doesn't always work, but I don't think Kieron Carey is going to result in Limerick shipping 7 goals anytime soon. So let's wait and see. It's 8:48 this morning here on OTB, and we'll keep you up to date with everything else that's going on in the world, and we'll keep a close eye on the election in the US. It's night time now there, so most people, most counts I think, have paused, and you're not going to get too much more news over the next while, apart from the fact that everybody's going crazy about Trump's speech where he said he's going to go to the Supreme Court and that the election was being stolen, even though he's still winning at the moment. So let's wait and see how that one all plays out over the next 24 hours or so. In the meantime, let's bring you this. Wexford, very, very, very disappointing against Galway at the weekend in Croker on Saturday night. Davy Fitz was out very strongly afterwards, speaking to the media. Here's Lee Chin speaking just a couple of days after that with Owen yesterday. Have a look.
Okay, so Lee Chin is hitting the campaign trail this week as part of Now TV's Hurl versus Hurley campaign, which will see the nation vote on what is the definitive term for a hurler's most prized possession. The result of the poll will be revealed to the public on November 12th. And to have your say, visit hurlvhurley.com. That is hurlvhurley.com. where you can cast your vote right now. Lee, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm not too bad on, thanks.
I think if we could see a little bit below in the T-shirts, you'd be able to see that you are voting Hurl. I'm pretty sure, yes, Hurl is what you're voting for. Why Hurl? Why is this something that you've always said? Was there a big awakening at some point in your life, or is this non-negotiable on your front?
No, on my front, it's non-negotiable for me. It's since I've been a kid, since I've been young, traditionally in Wexford, it's been a Hurl. There's nobody in Wexford that I know that uses the term hurley. I'm not sure about other parts of Leinster as such, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of Leinster refer to it as a hurl. I know Munster's a bit different and refer to it as a hurley, but traditionally here in Wexford, for me, it's always been a hurl.
Because Seamus Callanan's on the other side of this. He is obviously saying hurley, so it probably is just a Munster-Leinster divide, is it?
I'm pretty sure that it is. Not sure about other parts of the country, and I'm not even sure if it's every county in Leinster or Munster which they refer to it as a hurl or a hurley. But I just know at Wexford and my own people, it's always been a hurl.
Brian Cody also says hurl, which is a fairly definitive thing. A fairly good person to have on your side in this. What does Davey call it?
A hurl.
Oh, does he?
I'm gonna say a hurl. I think hurley. I think he actually uses both terms. Maybe when he was I suppose in Clare. Maybe when he's in Clare, it's hurley, but when he's in Wexford, he uses the term hurl.
He's learned the language after going over to Wexford. What have the last couple of days been likely as a Wexford hurler? I presume it hasn't been easy. Like, have you put perspective on what happened on Saturday, or what have the last couple of days been like?
Yeah, they've been tough on. Yeah, obviously it's nothing that we anticipated. It's not that we went out to play the way we did. And obviously it's been a long time since we hurled, and we were just so anxious to get out in the field and get in the championship mode. And just things didn't go to plan on the day. The last couple of days have been tough. We wanted obviously to put in a better performance than that. And I don't think we done ourselves any justice at all. I don't think it was, even looking back on the game, it just didn't look like us at all on the day. We're extremely disappointed.
What do you get up to the last couple of days then? Has there been a collective training session? Has there been a couple of chats, or what is the process after a defeat like that?
Yeah, well, look, the game was played Saturday night, so we took Sunday off. We trained yesterday evening. And I suppose since Saturday night, I think for me anyway, the main thing, I was just eager to get back training. I wanted to get back in with the lads to have a few conversations. Last night, some honesty was expressed as well, and it was great to get that. Obviously there's a small breakdown of your game and I suppose team collectively, but we didn't dive too much into the analysis of the game yet. We just wanted to, I suppose, gather our thoughts a little bit more of last night. And look, the main thing was to just get back training, get back in the field and get ready for the next day, because I suppose at the moment now we're just keen to try and put things right.
Those honest conversations, is there a bit of honesty that comes out immediately on Saturday night? Because I know Davey obviously held nothing back when he did his media interviews afterwards. He was unforgiving, to say the least, in what he said afterwards. Is he like that in the dressing room as well?
Yeah, he was. Look, he was very passionate about it. He was honest, very vocal. And look, I know he mentioned in his interview that he was speaking on behalf of us all, which we all believe it was justified. And we all felt the very same. It was, like I said, we let ourselves down. We let Davey down. We let the Wexford people down. We didn't perform like we can. And on the night, I just don't think we just didn't as individuals hurl to our capabilities. And it was a big fall for us, So, but look, at he did obviously in the dressing room after he expressed the same type of feelings to us. And we needed that too, because we're all hurting. We're all feeling pretty low after the game, and look, there's no better man than Davey to try and lift you afterwards, and obviously share his share his emotion too.
I'm sure. Has there been other moments like this in your intercounty career where you have, as you say, not hurled to your capabilities? Because that was the real noticeable thing on Saturday, is that Galway aren't that much better than Wexford, as the final scoreline showed. Has there been previous moments where you've come off a pitch and realised that you need to do something outside of the way you're actually playing hurling to try and get yourself to a level where you're getting the most out of yourself, I suppose?
I think it was just on the night. It was about getting the mindset right, and I just think we probably weren't in the right frame of mind for whatever reason that might have been. Davey expressed it after the game. We didn't fight hard enough. I suppose we did create certain opportunities for ourselves, maybe some goal chances that we didn't take. That probably would have made the scoreline a little bit different, but still, we're going back to the performances on both sides of each team. On Saturday night, Galway were much the better team. They looked like they were hungrier. They wanted more. They were getting to the breaks faster. They were winning most of the 50-50 battles, and we just didn't seem to be at the races for 3/4 of the game. First 20 minutes we were pretty okay with. Probably still didn't play overly well. We just hung on in there. But after they went 3 points ahead and then got the goal to go 6 points ahead was a bit of a, I suppose, a bit of a how can I say, it was just a kind of a nail, and it was just tough to accept that they got a kind of goal the way they did. Like it was a scrappy goal, and it was a blow for us. I'm not saying that's when we dropped our heads, because even at half time in the dressing room we sat down, we assessed it, and we said we're capable of pulling it back here. We got out into the field, and again we kind of started off, I suppose, that second half the way we ended the first half, and it just nothing really seemed to flow for us at all. And it was just extremely disappointing at the end,
And also, what kind of made this unexpected, really, from a Wexford perspective, is that we've seen that team fight back in games before. Like that, you have the information there. Like, I presume even if you look at the All-Ireland semi-final last year against Tipperary, that game swung in both ways so drastically. There was a fight back in that game from Wexford. Is it just about now trying to review that information that you already have, whatever it may be, the triggers that you have, the mental ticks that you have going, to be able to get back to a level where you were at mentally, I guess, at the end of last year's championship?
It is, yeah. That would be part of the process. At the end of the day, we didn't seem to have that same fire in our belly throughout the game. Like I said, we weren't getting to the breaks quick enough. We weren't putting in big tackles. We weren't turning over the ball as often. Like Galway outworked us. And usually, whatever team works the hardest wins the game. And on that particular night, Galway worked harder than what we did, and we're not hiding from that. We know that was the case, and obviously there were some individual performances on the Galway end that on the night were very good, and we found it hard to cope with that. But look, it's ultimately, end of the day, we did not fight hard enough for what we've shown to be able to do in the past, I suppose. Even though if we're behind or not. We always pride ourselves on going down swinging.
What was your initial reaction to getting a bye into qualifiers? Is a game next weekend possibly what you would have wanted?
For some guys, it would have been. I think like some probably wouldn't have minded. I particularly look at happy enough that suppose you get an extra week to prepare. After a defeat like that in performance, sometimes only having a window of 7 or 8 days might not be enough to kind of regroup, refocus. So I'd be enough just to get the extra week, But in saying that, if we'd have been drawn to play this weekend, I also wouldn't have minded, because as a competitor, the first thing you want to do is get back into the field and get going again, and maybe get a game under your belt. But look, it's only an extra 7 or 8 days to try and turn it around.
How good do you guys feel on a physical level then? Because obviously you've gone through the mentality of it all quite well there. Physically, a lot of the hurling teams taking to the field at the moment look in incredible shape. It looks like the 7 months off have been used to bulk up in a lot of cases. You came up against a Galway team that are notorious for their physicality on Saturday night as well. Was that a particular focus from your perspective and from your team's perspective to actually get bigger and get stronger, I guess, over the course of the pandemic?
I don't think it was an extreme focus of ours. No. I can imagine there's a lot of guys had a lot of time throughout the year to maybe work on things that they feel they needed to work on, and if that was getting bigger or getting faster, stronger, whatever it may have been, a lot of our lads probably did reach their goals. But no, look at it. I think we pride ourselves on, or look at ourselves as being, I suppose, moving the ball efficiently and being, I suppose, runners more than anything. And I suppose look at it on the night. Like I mentioned just earlier, winter hurling is going to obviously, I suppose, make the game a little bit slower, and the more physical teams are going to be a little bit more dominant, I suppose, in this time of the year.
Do you feel that you can match the big teams physically then? Having said that, did you feel like Galway had an edge in that department at all on Saturday?
I feel that they probably did, but I'm probably, the fact that when you're assessing it now, you're probably thinking we almost allowed them to be that.
Sure.
I don't think like I said again, we did not approach the game the right way, just mentally. We probably weren't putting in the big tackles, and we weren't getting to the breaks quick enough and getting numbers into the breaks. I just think that's always Galway's forte, to be physical and play hurling. And I suppose we did not execute our game plan at all well enough, and didn't match them then for their physicality. And it's not saying that we can't. It's just on the night, I don't think we did.
Just on some of the bigger picture stuff then, Lee, like it may be a bad week to be talking about last year, and I know I've mentioned the Tipperary semi-final already, but coming into this season, does the conclusion to last year, is it something that, is it like a ghost that you want to exercise at some point in the future, or does it actually become a source of confidence for you that you see Tipperary go on to win the All-Ireland last year, and you have a case to be made that actually you can beat them on a given day? How did you view that game last year and the way your championship last year ended?
Yeah, well, look, at hurling can be funny that way. You can be beaten by a team, but walk away from the game knowing you have, like, I suppose, in a way, we can compete with them, or we have the beatings of them.
Yeah.
But it's something that you have to, in hurling, in the past is the past. You have to leave it there, and if you're going to dwell too much on it, you're going to get caught, And like, I suppose that game against Tipperary last year, the only thing that it proves is that that you're able to compete at the top level. But at the end of the day, it still takes an awful lot to get over the line, and then to go on the next day like Tipperary did and actually win Liam McCarthy. Look, for us, obviously, we want to be getting back to the same standards that we've had previous. And I know on Saturday night we just did not reach those standards at all. A major part of our plan is our work ethic, and our I suppose just the fact that we compete throughout the 70 minutes of a game, 75 minutes of a game, and we don't give up. And on Saturday night we did not do that.
You've got the sound of a man who actually can't wait to go back out onto the pitch immediately and put right what went wrong on Saturday. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, like immediately after the game, obviously you're hurt, you're disappointed. Like I said earlier, we didn't anticipate that at all. Like, no team does, but we expect more of ourselves. And I suppose after Saturday night, once I got home and I got a bit of sleep and I woke up Sunday, all I wanted to do was get back into the field and get back training with the lads and get ready for the next day to try and, just try and put it right and just to fulfill our own standards. Just to get things to, like, we know ourselves as the last number of years that we'd be fighters and we'd fight till the end, and I know we didn't do that, so we're very disappointed with ourselves for that, and we just want to get back into the field and try and put it right.
And are you focusing most of your attention on hurling at the moment as well? Do you have many distractions going on in your life?
No, at the moment it's just focusing on what we're doing now at this time of the year is championship. You're in championship mode, and there's not a whole lot that's going on bar the hurling.
Well, Lee, best of luck with whoever it is that you're playing on Saturday or Sunday week. It's great that there is a back door into hurling as well, and that there is a second chance. Just to remember that Lee Chin has been hitting the campaign trail this week as part of Now TV's Hurl versus Hurley campaign, which will see the nation vote on what is the definitive term for the hurler's most prized possession. So the result of the poll is going to be revealed on November 12th. And go on to hurleyvhurley.com, where you can vote right now. Lee Chin is telling you to vote for Hurl. Davey is telling you to vote for Hurl as well, as is Brian Cody. So they got a strong old team. Listen, Lee, thanks a million. I know it's been a tough couple of days. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Why can't we all just get along? That's what I want to know. 087 918 180 is the number if you want to get in touch this morning. We'd love to hear from you wherever you're watching in the world. You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream as well. Plenty to come this hour on OTB AM. Connacht GA CEO John Prenti is going to talk to us about Sligo forfeiting their Connacht semi-final against Galway. We've got the Tight Five with Neil Tracey, and we're back with Shane Curran and David Brady to preview a massive game at the weekend between Roscommon and Mayo. Talking GA next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Thursday night football with John Giles.
Johnny Giles is a national treasure. When he speaks, I mean, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. He's real. There's no bullshit with Johnny Giles. And when he's on the show, I was in the car the other day, I parked the car and I sprinted into the house and turned on the radio. I love listening to him. I love his descriptions about the players, that spot he's been doing where he's named the best 11. I love Johnny Giles. He's a national treasure, and long should he continue and have a voice to be listened to, because when he speaks, he's got real things to say. I really love him.
John Giles, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
Glenn, you obviously saw that special talent as well in Rio Ferdinand, because you had him around that squad in '98 when he was a very young player.
Yeah, I took him to the World Cup for a bit of experience, really. But also, you have to take a player that you think can do the job on the pitch. Number one. It was very young, but that was one of the frustrating things in losing the job when I lost it, because Rio, I spoke to Rio about this, but I had some fantastic plans for Rio, because in a three at the back and him coming out from the back and going into midfield and doing, that's how we wanted to play him. And that's how he played in my last game for England. We beat the Czech Republic 2-0, and he played sweeper, and he was outstanding. Because I said to him, I want you to go all the way. I think I said to him, I want you to try and get hold of some old German tapes of Beckenbauer and Matthias, more Matthias, because it was more his generation. And I want to show you getting through the pitch. I want you to go all the way, make the difference in the midfield. Because as Harry said, he's played as a kid. He was a midfield player. I think he's even played up front at one stage. But he was so comfortable on the ball. And I think over his career in a back four, it's held him back for his real talent. He's never been able to show his real talent. In a three, in the centre of a three, he would have been absolutely Bobby Moorish. It'd have been sensational, because with the other two centre-backs staying and the midfield player ready to drop in, Ince used to do that for us with England. And that was the plan I wanted, to go to the Euros and put Rio in the side. And it was so exciting, you know, and to think of him playing in that role, because he could defend as well. As you say, Harry, he's taller than you think. He's about 6'3".
Oh, yeah.
Amazing height. When I first went to England and I first met him and brought him into the training, I brought him in just to train with the senior team. I couldn't believe how big he was. He was just a young kid. He was only 16, 17 then. And I thought, yeah, this fella is going to be absolutely spot on for what I want to do.
The Sunday Paper Review on OTB.
And it got me thinking, I think, about a lot of the arguments that are made, Joe, around the social value of sport. And I think you'll see a theme, and many of the listeners will see a theme in the newspapers today, about why, on the one hand, sport should be given an exemption because the social value and all of the things it brings. And this is what Eamon Sweeney is saying. But we need a bit of humility here, I think.
Digesting the best stories on the back pages every Sunday afternoon on OTB Sports Radio. Tune in 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Right, we want to turn our attention to the football at the weekend. It was supposed to be a Connacht weekend preview, the semi-finals. Delighted to say we've got Shane Curran and David Brady with us. Gents, you're both very welcome. Before we get into the actual football on the field, I just want to ask you both about what you make of the fact that the game between Sligo and Galway now won't go ahead. David, I might start with you. Tomás O'Shea has come out on Twitter in the last hour saying he thinks it's very disappointing the game hasn't gone ahead, that other counties have made really strong efforts to get teams on the field of play, and we're going to hear a little bit more about the Sligo situation from John Prenti in a while. So without second guessing the motivation behind it, what's your take on what's happened so far, David?
Yeah, Ger, look, it's disappointing, but I think we need to understand that the priority is not a Connacht Championship. I think the priority is the player's safety, and I don't, from what I understand, there's a number of positive COVID tests, but there's a number of unknowns as well. And that, I think the unknowns has led the Sligo team to say, right, this is not a potential fixture that they can fulfill, and they're still awaiting tests. You can't just, and look, we all, the very simplistic view that the under-21 plays or bring some minors and pick guys up at the side of the road. That's not fulfilling a fixture. That's just keeping people happy and putting people, in my view, the health at risk. They have no definitive number or tracing on people that are close contact. So you go to yourself, you know what? We talked about it. We talked about the possibility of it. They're not going to be part of the Connacht Championship, which is very disappointing from them, I suppose. Personally, as a Sligo player, they've put a massive amount of effort. They are one of the, what you would call, weaker teams. Leitrim had a scenario also where they couldn't field a team, and people were saying, why can't you put out 20 others, or why can't you put out some sort of a team? This is not about putting teams out, 15 players on the pitch for the sake of it. If they're not certain that players are fully protected, or there's a fear of other people or other players that will come into the panel who probably haven't been in that close proximity bubble either. The players that have been in the bubble have got infected in some way, shape or form on the outside. So game's not on. Unfortunately, it's disappointing from a football context, but it's not going to be the last time we see it. And look at the argument, I'm not even going to go into it. Big teams, small teams.
Okay.
The rule is if a team up to the semi-final can't fulfill a fixture, unfortunately, it's not part of the Connacht Championship. But I would like one thing, that Sligo do represent the protocols and the testing procedures as was, and to see is that based on good practice. Yeah. Okay. Shane Curran, quickly, your take on this before we talk about the game at the weekend.
Look, I think I think all of the other three that they supported any support to all in terms of I said at the start, fishing should have been a little more fluid and flexible.
We're just having a little bit of trouble with your line there, Shane, so we might come back to you in just a second. We'll try and re-establish contact so we can hear a little bit more clearly. Obviously, Shane had his own situation with regards to the county final of the club team in Offaly that he was looking after, and he didn't attend because of concerns. So we're really interested to hear what he has to say about that. What about the actual game that's happening this weekend then, DB? There's a lot of unknowns, I would say, about where everybody is in terms of how close to championship pitch they're going to be. But Mayo have had an opportunity to put a team out, play another game, and then play a championship match. And for me, that gives them just a slight advantage heading into this game against Roscommon, which is actually on a knife edge, I think. There's one certainty, and the one certainty is on the Roscommon side. Very, very consistent performances. Not alone, look at your 7 months without competitive football. But if you look at their victory over Armagh, and you look at then away victory over Cavan, these are teams that the likes of Cavan have beaten Mayo in the National League not too long ago. There's one thing about Roscommon, they've been very, very, very consistent with a spine of players that have showed consistent performances, and the likes of Enda Smith and Donny Smith and the Murtaghs and the Cahill Craigs. These guys, for me, have the potential to beat Mayo
not the potential to cause an upset. Yes, Mayo had, again, a roller coaster start to the league. Unbelievable win by 15 points against Galway. Showed a lot of enthusiasm, freshness, appetite, and the integration of the young and old. But it didn't prove that against Tyrone. And last Sunday, yes, to have a championship, James Horan offered the opportunity to give 5 depth. And again, we're going to see what team goes out in the field, but it's about blending the old with the new, because if you look at the old Mayo, you haven't got are in any way, shape or form. Now, some of it is towards injury, but not a lot of it. There's no Keith Higgins, no Colin Boyle, no Seamie O'Shea, no Tom Parsons. Kevin McLaughlin, who was the best club player by a country mile during the Mayo Championship, started centre back, which was thrown into the deep end. I thought, if that's where you want to play him, you have to give him some integration. I know he played twice in the county championship at centre back, but that was as an attacking centre back. So look, it's a lot of new players coming in. I love the new players coming in, like Oisin Mullen. He is pound for pound going to be part of the Mayo squad for the next 10 years. You have Tommy Conroy, who is electric. That's the only way you can define him, as electric. But again, the focus from Roscommon is their centre diamond is going to put a lot of pressure on Mayo and not allow what Galway did, and allow nice, fluid, interactive ball being delivered into the full forward. Tyrone stopped that outside from the half-back midfield, and I think Roscommon are going to do it as well. And the consistency from Roscommon, handed down from Kevin McStay to Cunningham, for me, that team has progressed. And
yeah, TV's gone now too.
People say it's easy to get a team back up into Division 2. Let me tell you, it hadn't been easy for teams in the past. It won't be easy for Mayo next year, but Roscommon have done that.
What's the rivalry like between these counties, and how has it developed? Shane, I might put this one to you first. I know you're back with us. I'm not sure, did yourself and DB hate coming up against each other? Was it a rivalry born out of familiarity and hatred, and has that developed nicely over the last decade or so?
Yeah, it probably has, and I think, I suppose, this group of Roscommon players, as David alluded to there, have been around together for quite a while now, even from the late noughties there as minors and under 21s. They've matured into a right good team. If you had take the Murtas, and in particular, some of the other players that have really done really well over the last number of years. They've been together, the two Smiths and these lads, and they've developed a kind of way of playing that is suited to the modern game, really. I suppose with Kevin, they probably played a more open, a more fluid, a more expansive game, but now under Cunningham, they're playing a different game altogether, which is based on a far more solid defensive element to how they actually play. And they've found that consistency of performance by being, I suppose, playing against and competing against the better teams in Division 1, okay. It's been a kind of a yo-yo type of thing in terms of the leagues. They've been up and down, but at least they're consistently playing against the best teams in the country and learning and developing their game. And they're finding an odd gem as well. Cian McKeown has come in this year and done very, very well. Colin Lavin has been going off the last couple of years and maturing into that position. Notwithstanding, there are a couple of positions that possibly were short in, but we make it up by really working hard throughout the team. And I think over the last 4 or 5 years in particular, there's no fear about meeting Galway or Mayo now in the Connacht Championship. They've built up that confidence. They know now they can compete against them in this championship. Maybe not so much when you go into the All-Ireland series, and that's the next, I suppose, phase in this team's development, if they can actually go and break through that class ceiling and become more competitive. I don't know about the hatred element. David and myself got on really well on the pitch, I think. And generally off it as well. So look, I think the lads nowadays are different. They're all in college together. They're meeting each other in multiple different social settings, and I think the pitch is just an extension of that. But there certainly is a very strong rivalry, and notwithstanding the fact that we won't have any supporters there on Sunday, the rivalry between the players will be very strong, and I'm sure the management as well.
I can't imagine you had a rivalry or a hatred with too many people, Shane, being in goals.
Unfortunately, I used to get into an adult service, all right, but you look at that was part and parcel of it, and I think it's still part and parcel of the game. I think if you take away that out of it, we won't have anything at all. It's all part. And once it's over, you walk away and you enjoy it, and you have the crack, and that's what it's all about. But look, there is a rivalry, and that's it, I suppose, it comes. So back in my day, Mayo would have been the stronger rivals because the border beside my own hometown of Castlereagh, the Galway border was there as well. But we never kind of really, I suppose, because of the hospital and the Gardaí in Castlereagh, there was a lot of them from Mayo. We generally ignited the switch with them a lot quicker than we did with the Galway lads.
That lack of fear, David, that he talks about that Roscommon now have towards Mayo, is there a little bit of fear that creeps into Mayo after recent seasons, not least last year?
Not least last year, not least 25th of May, when Roscommon didn't surprise. You know, they were consistent as well in their performances. You're coming off the back of National League champions. People are talking about X, Y, and Z about Mayo, and all of a sudden you're handed your tail into your pocket with a defeat at home to Roscommon. It's nearly, for me, I'm look at 2018, 2020, Mayo lost all their home games. Their last championship game against Roscommon and Castlebar, I think, is nearly better from a Mayo perspective that it's in the height because it's their home performances haven't been good. But this is by no means what you think. Ask the bystander on the street, Mayo, Roscommon, yeah, Mayo. This is by no means a done deal. Again, you had a very tight encounter from a Leitrim perspective. Mayo, and by no means, I think, overclassed them. They probably used their experience towards the end and without Kieron O'Connor. And again, that's the key fulcrum, Kieron O'Connor. We've seen in the previous game against Tyrone, from a leadership point of view, from a free-taking point of view, that's the reality of it. We had 3 or 4 different free-takers. Some games last year when Kieron wasn't, we had 5 free-takers. We haven't unearthed a left-footed free-taker to a degree in the Mayo team. I think that's a failure. I don't think the centre-forward line has performed in any way, shape or form. That's not been on an individual basis, but a collective basis. We had a lot of new faces in there last weekend. Again, Jordan Finn was given his first appearance. I think that's going to be key from a Mayo perspective, how their half-forward line performed and the quality in delivering a ball into the likes of Aidan O'Shea from out midfield, Conor Loftus, Matt Ruan, who is a constant performer. It's going to be, there's a lot of unknowns with Mayo, but I think there's consistency with Roscommon.
Yeah, that Kieron O'Connor question is a very interesting one, because it did seem to me, David, that he was at times operating a bit in a far more deeper position than you might often see him in a big game, that his tackling was really good, and that he's set to have a very, very good season if they get out of Connacht.
Why is he doing that, Owen? So the reason why he's doing that is, and I think, look at God knows if it's going to change, it might, but you have Aidan O'Shea in there. So you want Kieron to come with more depth. He's getting on a lot more ball away from goal, and I think that kind of a playmaker role suits Kieron. It can be very well defended if you're a corner forward or you're in the full forward line and you can have a double team or you can have a sweeper in front or you can have one behind. For Kieron, it gives him a little bit more latitude. You have the yin and the yang inside. You've got Aidan that is 6'4" and you've got Tommy Conroy who's electric. So you go, right, what way do we play it? Do we play it? We keep Roscommon on their toes. They have to defend. They have struggled with Aidan from a full forward perspective in previous years, not this current team necessarily, but it gives Mayo a different outlet. But that outlet is only given if you're allowed to give nice, clean ball from the outside in, and that's what Tyrone didn't allow it. Leitrim tried to cut it out well, but from Aidan scoring 2 points the last day, allowing Kieron come out, you have a great kind of a combination, a recipe there for a platform to lift off. But again, you have Conor Loftus playing midfield for the first time inter-county wise in his career. Again, James is looking for a more athletic, kind of a industrious midfield partner to Matthew Rowan, who is again consistent. But you have, for me, you have again the likes of Oisin Mullen. Thanks be to God, this guy didn't go to Australia playing Aussie rules, because he saved us even last Sunday on numerous times. When you have Stephen Cohen in a full back again, so he's not a constant full back, but that seems what it's going to be for the year. But he was like a mature player for his years, and for me, he's very, very exciting.
Shane, what do you think is going to happen? Will you call it for us?
I think, there's a lot of imponderables, as David has said there about Mayo. For a lot of these players, it'll be their first taste of real senior inter-county championship action in a big game away from home. Roscommon are a more mature side. Now, you don't need to be a tactical genius, I suppose, to understand where the Achilles heel is in our team. But as I said, we do make up for that with a lot of industry around the middle third, and particularly when Inda Smith comes out to join maybe a midfield 2 or make it a midfield 3 or a midfield 4, depending on the personnel that we pick. Cathal Craig could end up at 6, or he could end up at 11, or he could end up at 10 or 12. We're not too sure yet. Conor Daly is a huge loss if it's a thing that it looks like most likely he's out, which will mean that most likely Sean Maloney will end up picking up Aidan O'Shea on the edge of the square. Maloney has been a revelation. He's one of these fantastic footballers that we have in Roscommon from Strokestown. He's actually he's like a silent ghost attacker as well when we have the ball, and gets in around the back for a few scores quietly. He's great pace, great engine. That'll be an interesting duel. The middle third really is where I think is what will define the game. With Compton most likely, for ourselves, Tiger Rourke, and the likes of Cathal Craig coming out making it another 4 or 5 there. If we can come up with enough of ball there, which is always a question and a query at this part of the competition, against the level of competition that you're coming up against. We have the forwards, I think, to trouble, which is in many ways an untested and an untried defensive unit. I think we're used to looking at Mayo over the last number of years of Higgins, Boyle, Keegan, et al. Really, but that kind of partnerships don't seem to be there just at the moment. They have conceded scores, even against Galway. They conceded a lot of scores against their own goals as well. There's goals and there's points in this Roscommon forward line, this Roscommon attack, and I think if we get enough of ball, if we can transition fairly quick through the middle third and ask questions of the Mayo full back line, I see no reason why Roscommon can't win the game.
All right, you're sounding confident. Look, we tried by starting this conversation off by asking you about what you thought of the forfeiture of the game by Sligo at the weekend. Just we're nearly out of time, Shane, but what do you think?
Yep. I think the silence has been deafening from a lot of county boards in relation to this, and that disappoints me. I said it in the outset there that I think the competition this year, we should have had an element of fluidity and flexibility around the fixtures, where things like this crop up, that counties aren't forced into forfeiting. It's been a hard enough season for a lot of them as it is. It's hard, as David said earlier on, and alluded to, about families and players, and the risk that there is about bringing this virus back maybe to elderly parents or grandparents or whatever it may be, people that are in challenged positions health-wise. I find it kind of almost, it's this ideal that we let it go to the semi-final. We know then at the semi-final that you're going to have the cream of the crop. What happens? We now know that we're going to have postponement. So I think for the integrity of the competition, and not so much about whether it's Sligo or anybody else, counties should have been allowed at least one postponement and see where you go from there. We're in no rush. COVID is absolutely going nowhere. It's going to be with us next year. If the competition had to be stretched out into the middle of January, early February, what about? But I think for the integrity of the competition, it's not a good look. And I feel really, really sorry for the people of Sligo. I feel sorry for the management and their team. And to be honest about it as well, I don't think Galway either want to find themselves in a Connacht final this way or any other way. And it's not good for them, depending on the winners of Sunday's game the following week, to be playing a team that's really battle-hardened, gone into a Connacht final. So I think it's not too late. Maybe it is for Sligo. I think deeper introspective on this needs to be found. If the Connacht final the following week in Mayo and Roscommon has a number of cases break out, what's going to happen then? And I think this should have been addressed. It should have been addressed a long time ago, but it hasn't been. All right, Shane Curran, thanks for that. My thanks to David Brady as well for joining us this morning to help us preview the game that is going ahead this weekend. Okay, so I want to tell you about this. It's our Mystery Voice competition. We're giving away the opportunity to win a couple of Ireland jerseys. It's the new Ireland jersey, sponsorless. It's all thanks to Umbro, official kit sponsor of the FAI. Shop the new sponsorless Irish football jersey right now at faishop.com. Who's this?
We were beaten by a far better team. Out-fought, out-battled, tactically we were second best.
Tell us his name and your name, and WhatsApp us the answer to 0879 180 180, and we're giving away 2 jerseys on the show this morning. This is your last chance to enter. Now, time for us to turn our attention to rugby. Neil is with us for this week's Type 5. Neil, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Ger. How are you getting on?
Where are we starting?
Well, I said I'd break down a bit of the Irish line-out work and a couple of other bits as well. Well, I suppose line-out and maul, because I think we saw in the first half in particular in the game in Paris on Saturday night just the amount of missed opportunities Ireland had when they got into the French 22. And I said I'd look back on a few of them, see what Ireland actually did in terms of where they went in the line-out and how they tried to set up the maul and why it didn't actually come together. So I have a few screen grabs here. Unfortunately for those who are listening to this live rather than watching it, I will try explaining as best I can. We're going to bring the first of those up on the screen here in front of us. So this is 10 minutes in. This is the penalty after Hugo Keenan had the potential penalty try that wasn't given. Ireland kicked the penalty into touch. So this is the setup. We can see here that James Ryan is about to go up right towards the front of the line-out. But he has kind of made the move from the tail end of the line-out. He's walked right up towards the front to try kind of get ahead of the French man to collect it. But what that has happened is, for those who can see on the screen, I have 3 arrows pointing in the direction of the touchline. That's the kind of support players who were behind James Ryan. So they're going to be coming into the maul from that angle. So Ryan goes up and collects it, comes back down to ground. And if we move on to the next screen grab, this is from behind. And we can see what has happened is those players, those Irish players, were running in from the open side of the pitch towards the touchline. But what it's done is it's given France the opportunity. You can see they've 2 pods of 3 players each. One of them, the one on the right-hand side, they're just pushing straight up in the direction of the pitch, straight into James Ryan. But the one to the side, they have now just had the opportunity to drive straight up towards the touchline and push the Irish support group, who are already coming from that side and have a huge amount of momentum, going towards the touchline. So they are driving them towards the touchline. What ends up happening is the Irish maul, it kind of wheels around a little bit, and eventually Rob Herring has to kind of fling back and offload to try keep it out of touch, and in the end Ireland knock it on. But it was just quite interesting. A lot of teams would probably go towards the tail end of a line out there to kind of keep it away from the touchline, but it just presented France the opportunity to push Ireland towards touch.
To use our own momentum against us.
Exactly.
Right.
But what we're going to do then is we're going to skip ahead to, this is on 40 minutes. This is the one where Ireland got the penalty, decided not to kick it, and go down into touch again. So this time Ireland do what they didn't do on the last one, on the first one initially. So as you can see there on the screen, I have Tyg Byrne. You can see that little angle where he's just going to loop around. He is standing at the front of the line-out at the moment. He's going to work his way to the back of the line-out, where he's going to go up. And if we can go on to the next clip here. We don't seem to have a clip there. So what happens is Tyg Byrne runs around. Yeah, we can see it here. So Byrne is up into the air. But now you have the Irish support runners coming in to help him out in the maul. They are coming from the touchline side. So you have Quayle and Doris there, and you also have James Ryan. They're coming back infield. So all the momentum of the Irish players, that's working back in towards the post and away from the touchline. Now, it's probably the safer option. And in fairness to Ireland, they actually work this quite well. It just takes a lot of really, really good French defence to actually stop them. They just get some bodies in the way, get some bodies in the line. And we can see that France eventually just stop Ireland. The play moves on, and Ireland kind of, I think in the end, it was a player off his feet about 6 or 7 phases later.
So, but this is better than the first one?
It certainly is, yeah, it certainly is. It's definitely, it's a lower risk option, and in the end what Ireland did, they just peeled away from the line-out, so they wanted to create a quick maul. Rob Herring and his little pod peel away from that and start moving in towards the touchline. France just defended well. They read what Ireland are doing, and they get their bodies in. Like, I wouldn't actually, with hindsight, we were criticising more the decision to go to touch there rather than taking the points. But it just shows that you can do everything right sometimes and not get the required result. That just took some excellent French defending. It was a good option. What we'll see in the second half is one last option of the line-out I took, and this time Ireland go for that exact same option again, where they had Peter O'Mahony coming from the front towards the back instead of Tyg Byrne this time. This time, though, it looks like it's an early throw, or the throw is maybe a little bit too low, because as we can see there, I have the red circle. That is the French substitute, Dylan Cretin, who's just about to steal the ball. Now, he's at the height of his lift. He's at the height of his jump, and he has just got his hand on that ball at that very moment. You can see behind, Peter O'Mahony is being lifted into the air at that stage. He is barely halfway up through his lift. He is about 1.5 yards further back. So that throw was either way too low or the timing and the jump has gone up way too late because the French player is right in front of him. He was able to take it easily. Like a good option, that's the poor execution side of it.
Like in that instance, it also looked like it could have been thrown too early, or else there's just complete miscommunication. They've read exactly what we're doing and are uncontested winning our lineouts.
They are.
That's not great.
Look, as the second half wore on, there were other options where there were just lost lineouts. There were poor lifts, there were poor jumps, and some of them down to the French TV director were getting aerial shots, so we can't really pick out the height and trajectory of the throw. But there were just a couple of options where the Irish maul broke down and kind of why it broke down, and the various options the team used, why you would go to the front rather than the back or back rather than the front.
Yeah, so none of this is terminal though, right? Like we've seen an Ireland team do this and manage this well in the past, and so therefore, just fix that. And over the next couple of weeks, they'll have plenty of time in camp to fix it. This isn't something that we would say, oh, we can't now run a line out properly.
No, but there have been issues probably over the last 12 to 18 months where the Irish line-out just hasn't really been firing particularly well. Like we had throwing issues. I remember the game against Italy, particularly in the Six Nations of 2019 over in Rome, where there were huge issues, and Sean Cronin came in for a lot of criticism for his performance with his throwing. Rory Best, as we would have spoken about for years, and he addressed in his book that his throwing was something that was always put back against him as a criticism. Defensively in lineouts, Ireland are absolutely excellent, and they always have been, because they've got brilliant jumpers and split second decision makers, like even someone like Peter O'Mahony, who's just a brilliant defensive lineout operator. But it's just having to be more clinical and making better decisions when you get into that opposition 22.
Okay, let's talk about the lack of composure when trailing. Did we maybe lose our mind a little bit?
Yeah, it was more just the trend of the last couple of years that I was looking at, because I was thinking about the game in the second half and, can Ireland make the comeback? And I was trying to rack in my head, have we been coming back to win games over the last couple of years? And last night I sat down and kind of looked back over the games over the last couple of years, and it actually just is startling how few of Ireland's wins over the last couple of years that they've actually had to dig out and really come back and win. I've looked over the last couple of years. I've picked out Ireland's last 12 wins. So this is dating back to the start of the 2019 Six Nations. They've won 12 games across all tournaments and competitions there. Out of those 12 games, out of those 12 wins, they only trailed in 6 of them. 3 of those 5 games were against Italy. The largest deficit they have come from behind in over the last 2 years is 5 points. That was against Italy in a World Cup warm-up match. And you'd have to go back to the 2018 Six Nations against Wales in Dublin for the last time Ireland overturned a deficit of more than 7 points to win a game.
Right. So it shows if you get a lead in Ireland, you've kind of won the game, if you're any good.
You've taken a big step.
Okay, over lines on Sexton?
Yeah, so Johnny Sexton, it's just something that Brian O'Driscoll would have raised on Monday Night Rugby with Keith Wood as well, where, Johnny Sexton is the de facto best number 10 in Ireland, and therein lies the problem, because you look at someone like Ross Byrne, he's got 8 caps. He's only started 1 game still since his debut more than 2.5 years ago. That one start was against England in that World Cup warm-up match back in 2019 when, it really didn't work out well for him. And across the Six Nations, he just really hasn't been given the opportunity to come out and put together minutes and build a bit of confidence. He played across the Six Nations 11 minutes against France the other night, 10 minutes against Italy the week before when that game was done and dusted. He played 14 minutes against England at Twickenham. He played 9 minutes in the win against Wales when, again, Ireland were looking okay to win that game, and only played 7 minutes in the opening game of the tournament against Scotland as well. So you have to think in the Autumn Nations Cup, he has to be given at least 1 start and probably feature in all 3 games.
Yeah, and ideally it wouldn't just be the start against Georgia, where it's hard to judge anything from that. Last thing, anybody else getting a trial during the Autumn Nations Cup?
Yeah, I think we want to see a lot more players. James Lowe, we assume, is obviously going to be playing. I think Ryan Baird is someone we're probably going to be seeing as well. Would like to see, as I mentioned, a start for Ross Byrne. Possibly one other out half as well to get some significant minutes over the course of these 3 games. Then looking at midfield, maybe Chris Farrell or Stuart McCluskey coming in to play a bit of time. And just building up depth around the pitch. Shane Daly, maybe even Fineen Wycherley, who was involved along with Craig Casey as one of the development players in the group, who knows, they could be good enough to get some sort of minutes and just get a taste of international rugby.
All right, Neil, great stuff. Neil's Type 5 a feature of all of our rugby coverage here. And if you have any questions for him, you can WhatsApp us 087 9180 180, or you can get us on Twitter at Off the Ball as well. It's 9:38 this morning. I'm delighted to say John Prenti from the Connacht Council is with us now to talk to us about what's going on with the Connacht Football Championship. John, good morning to you. I'd say it's been a difficult enough week for you guys.
No, it's been challenging enough at times, but it's probably more challenging for Sligo than for anybody else.
So, was there any possibility of this game being postponed when it became clear that Sligo weren't going to be able to play it this weekend?
Well, I suppose the regulations that are set up by the National CCCC is that unless there's a 13-day, clear 13 days between the original fixture and the next fixture, then that you've got to give a walkover. There isn't 13 days between the Connacht semi-finals and the Connacht final next Sunday week. And Sligo took the decision that they were going to concede again. They didn't look for a postponement because, as you know, close contacts are out of action for 14 days, so a postponement of a week wouldn't have helped the situation an awful lot.
Okay, so that's kind of where this whole notion of being able to extend or introduce some elasticity to the championship fixtures might break down. I think a lot of people are going to be unfamiliar with those rules and those that standing situation, John. So maybe just, if you wouldn't mind, explain that to us again. There needs to be 13 days, is it, between a fixture and a postponement?
See, in the COVID regulations for 2020, which is different than the match regulations we've had for every other year, there's a couple of things put into it, and one of them is the postponement regulations, and it says the game will be awarded to the opposing team a walkover with no further penalty, and the exceptions to that are where there's a clear 13-day between the original fixture and the next scheduled round, and for the All-Ireland semi-finals and finals because you're down to only 4 teams, and then in relegation games. You won't get relegated if you cannot field because of COVID. So the situation we're in and the Sligo we're in is that it's not only involves Sligo, it also involves Mayo, Galway and Roscommon. So if we postponed, say, the Connacht semi-final from Saturday to the following week, that means we postpone the Connacht final. But then somebody from Galway, Mayo or Roscommon could get into the same situation Sligo are in, and then you're exacerbating the problem down the line. So there isn't wiggle room really to in the schedule that has been set out nationally. So there's no wiggle room there really because of the unpredictability, I suppose, of what happens with COVID. We don't know who's going to get infected next or who's going to be in lockdown.
No, for sure. And look, I don't know, John, there's a view out there that if this had been one of the superpowers, that the postponement wouldn't, or some wiggle room might have been found out. The way you're talking about it there, it's kind of irrelevant who the county is. The fixture list needs to proceed.
Absolutely. And look, at wiggle room, I'd be very disappointed if we got into stroke organisation of our associations, so that the rich would get richer and the poor would get poorer. Everybody in this situation is going to be dealt with in exactly the same way. Everybody knew the situation before when we were thrilled to be able to get a championship going. I think last weekend for the whole country did a great service by the amount of people who were isolated and at home and watching all the various games that were on and the various ways you had of watching the games and listening to the games. I think it was, I know I've had reaction from older people in particular looking forward to this weekend and the games again. So we've done a huge service to the country, I think, in the fact that the games are being played and live. Unfortunately, Sligo got into this situation, but this is a pandemic. They don't deal in precedents. It's an unprecedented situation, and unfortunately, Sligo are in the situation they are. But I'd like to compliment Sligo and the huge efforts they've made because their protocols have been absolutely A1, and they found themselves in this situation now, and they dealt with it in the best and the most appropriate manner possible. So I think there shouldn't be anybody giving out about Sligo for what they've done. They did exactly the right thing.
And John, just for clarity's sake, what was the situation with regards to Sligo in terms of the numbers that they had testing positive?
I haven't the full exact number that tested positive. I think they have a bigger concern about the close contacts than there was that tested positive because there's more people in the close contact scenario than those that tested positive, and they're out of the funny situation with this virus is that if you're positive, you're only tied up for 10 days, whereas if you're in close contact, you're out and you must be isolated for 14 days, and that was a bigger problem for Sligo than the amount of people that got tested positive.
And again, in that instance, the rapid testing is kind of pointless because if you're a close contact, you're a close contact.
Yeah, but you could be tested today and you could be fine and you might have the virus tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You still have to isolate for the 14 days if you're in close contact.
Yeah.
Okay, so and again, because a lot of people are like, oh, the rapid testing is going to prove some kind of magic bullet that's going to allow us to get through the situation, but that isn't the case.
Well, it's only going to prove that you have it today, Wednesday, or that you don't have it, but it doesn't prove that you'll have it, won't have it tomorrow.
Yeah, of course. All right.
This virus is just unpredictable. Nobody can guarantee. You can take all the precautions you like, and you can still pick up the virus in some way. So that's the way we are, and that's the way the whole population have to mind themselves. But there's no guarantee you won't get it.
Yeah, no, sure. And I presume morale in Sligo is pretty low from the people you've been talking to there.
Yeah, well, look, Sligo have been training since last September, October. Paul Taylor has assembled a very young panel. So, like a young fellow to say you're not going to get the opportunity to play in the Connacht Championship, it's very hard to take, and I'm sure they're very disappointed. But at the end of the day, health is our wealth, and we've got to make sure that that's adhered to, you know.
Okay, and I want to round this out now. Tomás O'Shea's been fairly critical on Twitter this morning, suggesting that the Sligo should have found a way to get the game to go ahead, that they, county or club players or underage players or whatever. Was there any conversation about that at all at any point with them, John?
Well, I suppose playing a club match and playing a county match is like chalk and cheese. And the preparation you need to be a county player compared to what you need to be a club player. So, you have all the championships are over, but not an awful lot of new guys have been pulled into the county panels because of their performance in the club championship. And that's the way it pans out. It's a different ballgame altogether when you're playing inter-county. So it's not just a simple thing of getting a pair load of guys from Sligo to go to Pure Stadium on Sunday and to go out and play Galway. No, of course. And ultimately it was Sligo's decision to not fulfil the fixture and not to seek a postponement, and they understood that they weren't going to be able to get enough players of what they thought was inter-county quality. Absolutely. They spent the whole day yesterday. I spoke to the chairman a number of times yesterday, the manager, the chairman, members of the county board. They spent the whole day trying to find a way of playing the game. But at the end of the day, it all came down to the fact that the close contacts were a bigger problem than those who were positive. Because the close contacts had no chance at all of playing if we postponed it. Whereas the positive guys, they'll be back in 10 days. They might have had a chance of playing next week, but the number of close contacts and the number of people that on the panel that were designated as close contacts, that was a major problem. So I suppose when they examined the whole thing, high up and low down, they came that their only option was to just concede it, and we've got to respect that.
No, that's fair enough.
There's absolutely no blame to be put on Sligo for what their decision it was. In their eyes and in my eyes, it was the correct decision.
And John, one last thing then. You've no concerns maybe that if other counties or players within counties might see what's happened to Sligo here and see that their championship season is over, that there might be a Dungarvan type situation where somebody is awaiting a test result and doesn't declare it, or somebody is asymptomatic but has tested or is close contact with somebody. Are you in any way concerned that the situation with Sligo might then prevent people from coming forward in other counties around the country?
Well, I know that all of the counties, every single one of the 32 counties and all of their teams have a very good medical setup around them, and the health of the country and your own health is way more important than winning a championship. And that's the situation we're in now, and I honestly cannot see why anybody would put the health of the rest of the players, why a player would play if he knew there was a guy positive in his team just to play the match. I think that's health has got to be the health of the nation, the health of the county, and the health of yourself has got to be put first. And I think our players are responsible enough to make sure, and our county boards and our medical people in particular are responsible enough to make sure that if there's a doubt, then you do what's right with it.
All right. John Prenti, the CEO of Connacht GA, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Mary.
John Prenti giving us some thoughts on the Sligo situation there. It's 9:48 this morning. It's been a big morning. It's the future of American democracy hangs by a knife edge, and Trump is now much shorter price than he was when I was talking to you a little bit earlier on, trying to look at these prices. They've been changing all morning. Biden's into 5-4 and Trump is out to 13-8 on. Biden was 2-1 about 25 minutes ago, so this is a fluid situation, and I suspect that we'll be talking about this on and off for the next couple of months. Right. Hi lads, Limerick man listening in Aarhus in Denmark. How is Aarhus? I've always wanted to go to Denmark and see exactly what it was like. And then Stephen Keenan is making that point. Sligo game massive this weekend. If the GA don't work with Sligo and postpone the game, if they've loads of cases, there's surely an incentive to not declare cases of key players in the futures. Well, there is that incentive there, but you would like to hope that teams don't pull the scumbag move of playing players who are COVID positive, because ultimately we've seen what that will do. It's a really, 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 really bad thing to do, and you'd want to be a complete scumbag to play a match positive. OTBAM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Our mystery voice today, who is this?
We were beaten by a far better team. Out-fought, out-battled, tactically we were second best.
I don't know what game he's talking about, but that is Tony Cascarino, Queeveen Williams in Leitrim and Rory Thomas are our winners this morning. You knew that one straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. Cascarino with us tomorrow morning on OTBAM, of course, as you mentioned earlier.
Leaders' questions with Owen Eastwood. Try saying that one too quickly, and you've been up since 5. OTB Gold, Dr. Harry Edwards talking to us about the O.J. Simpson documentary and just O.J. Simpson generally. This is a brilliant piece of radio. You should listen to it today from 1 o'clock. John Giles' all-time England 11 is coming your way at 3. Our retro panel is Caring for the Sports Person with Vincent Hogan, David Matthews and Dermot Ling. OTB Gold tonight, again a brilliant piece with Catherine Switzer talking about running the Boston Marathon as a woman, pretending to be a man and not being allowed to run, and then being dragged off the course and then ultimately finishing. An astonishing scenario, and a brilliant radio interview with Joe from 6, and then OTB is live tonight from 7 on News Talk and across all our channels. So Tony Cascarino tomorrow, Kerry Starr, Sean O'Shea. Here's some of our interview with Jim McGuinness last night talking about the current state of the GA. Enjoy.
Jim McGuinness, as I'm sure many of you have seen, has returned to Sky Sports as part of their 2020 Senior Football Championship coverage. Sky's next game is Dublin Westmeath. It's this Saturday coming, that's November 7th. This year, and you may have seen already, Sky has made all of its live football and hurling fixtures more widely available on the Sky Sports Mix channel, therefore opening the games up to the majority of homes in Ireland, which is a very nice gesture. Jim McGuinness, you're very welcome.
Hello there.
Great to have you with us. So you're back doing a bit of punditry. Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, Joe, it's good. It's nice to get back in the game. I suppose you're studying the teams and sort of formations and what everybody's up to and what can make a difference. So it's good in that point.
Do you place yourself in the role sometimes of opposition manager when you're looking at a team?
Almost every time that I watch a game, to be honest with you. I think that's the most enjoyable part of it, and to try and think your way through it and see what you can come up with in terms of what people are doing and, what things could make a difference. In that regard, I find it interesting at the moment that almost every team in the country is playing the same system, which to my mind would obviously mean that the squad with the best players will ultimately win the championship. With a team like Dublin that's been there and done that and sort of 5 in a row and looking for 6 in a row, I think maybe it might take something slightly different, to knock them off their perch. But I do believe that there's teams out there that have the potential to do that. I think it's going to be a competitive championship, and I think there's a number of teams, that have a chance.
And Jim, if you had to, in so much as you can, over the radio and without pictures, describe what that system is that teams are generally playing, how would you describe it?
Well, what I would call is like a man-to-man +1. So, the whole thing is kind of moved to man-to-man football, but you're still looking for that guy to be at the top of the D to cover, opposition teams, transitioning down through the middle. And most of the time that's going to happen. Let's say, for example, a team is attacking up the left wing. Well, it will be the players on the opposite side of the field that would fit in and slot in, that would be furthest away from the pressure on the ball. They're dropping in to cover the D if they can at all. And the other significant thing, my opinion again, would be that because it's man-to-man, everybody is picking up somebody, and so the man on the ball doesn't have a lot of options. And you can see that from all the games and even all the championship games at the weekend. Trying to progress the ball up the field is difficult. And I give the example of when I was with Donegal and we were back in the block, I suppose, a lot of the time, and we might have 12 behind the ball, 13 behind the ball. Once we had 14 behind the ball. I'm still hearing about it, but yeah, we would have been sitting back in the block, and then so whenever you turned the ball over, not only did you win the ball, obviously, but you had a chance then to engage with your own teammates to run the ball very aggressively. That, to my mind, has disappeared out of the game almost completely, because when people get the ball now, they just don't have those options. And then the other thing that I would say, Joe, is that there's not a lot of pressure on the ball now. Everybody seems to be what I would call shadow tackling. They're like 1 metre, 2 metre off the man. And there's nobody getting real pressure. And one or two pundits have said, they're tending to get a lot of players back and everything. But players going back now is not a consequence of the manager saying get back. It's a consequence of how many players you push on offensively, because everybody's been marked man to man. So you have this dynamic where people are struggling to move the ball up the field quickly. They're struggling to find players. A lot of the support for the man on the ball at the moment, to my mind as well, is from behind the ball. And I think with us, and going back 4 or 5 years, it would have been ahead of the ball. And so the game sort of ends up, being much more conservative, much more. Teams are much more conscientious in possession, and they're looking to keep the ball and keep the ball and keep the ball, draw the team out, and then inject pace on the blind side, which Dublin were brilliant at. But if you don't have pace to inject, then you've got a difficulty there. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, I think, in the game that are different in terms of the last number of years. And I think that, almost everybody is playing the same game. And so kickouts for me are huge. The teams that can push up zonally, in my opinion, because man to man, you're just being pulled and dragged at the behest of the opposition. Like the teams that are going absolutely man to man on the opposition kickouts, they're just exploding from the D, from the sixth position, the centre back position, and they're exploding towards the wing, and the keeper just chips the ball out because you've got the first run on your man. And so the teams that are doing a good job zonally, pushing maybe 4 players into the full forward line, the extra bodies in the half forward line, and forcing it long, they're the teams that are kind of getting sort of 50-50 possession around the middle of the park. And the teams that have very good keepers that can retain possession, they're up at 90-95% retention on their own kick-out. And the significant thing about that, for me, is the fact that once you get the ball in your hand now, it's really difficult to take the ball off teams. Teams aren't turning the other team over anymore. It's more when the team decides to go and inject that bit of pace, or if they decide to kick a ball in, that the ball might, pop out and they can turn it over and go that way. But it's not coming from intensity and tackles and pressure. That's a huge part of the game, I think, that sort of is diminished because of the way everybody's playing man-to-man. And when I say man-to-man, it's not man-to-man like it was years and years ago. The guy goes to the sideline and you're over on the sideline with him. They're man-to-man, and then there comes a point where they're not a danger, and then they're kind of half and half, and then they become a danger, and then they tighten up on them again. And so there's a lot of things going on in the game that's asking a lot of different questions at the moment.
Very interesting. Jim, why do you think we see this level of groupthink in GAA?
That's a really good question. We won the All-Ireland in 2012, and we won the All-Ireland playing a certain way. We kind of cut our own cloth to try and be successful. We were successful, ultimately. Like, we won 3 Ulster Championships in 4 years, and we won the All-Ireland, and we were in another final. So we were successful as a group, and we sort of done it a certain way. Everybody then, in terms of the group thing, decided, well, this is the way to do it, but it was never implemented the way we implemented it. We were based on intensity, we were based on pressure, we were based on turnovers, we were based on physical fitness. We had a savage transitional game once we did turn the ball over, which is sorely missing, in my opinion, at the minute. And so a lot of teams that tried to copy that model, they were getting back what I would call defensive shape, but not the defensive intensity. They weren't getting the turnovers. When they did get the turnover, they went lateral instead of going direct, and so it was a really bad imitation of what we were trying to do. And I suppose if you think about it, like, I mean, you know, Jim Gavin came into Dublin and the brand of football that they were playing was a huge kicking game, you know, and runners off that. They were playing in pods of 3. The ball was kicked in. You had 2 options, you know, coming to support the ball. And it was, you know, in terms of the eye, it was a phenomenal brand of football that they were playing, you know. And even like the league final in 14, they played Derry. We were in the second final that day, Division 2 final, and it just was an amazing brand of football. And then we beat them that year in 14, and then they decided not to go absolute man to man. That I was speaking about earlier. They were absolutely man-to-man, that Dublin team. And then they decided to go what's sort of in play right now, what's sort of that, you know, man-to-man to a certain point. And then obviously they had Cian O'Sullivan dropping off to the edge of the D, and he started to sweep for them, so they weren't going to concede that goal or goals down through the middle. And I think a lot of teams have looked at that template and decided this is the way that they want to do it, and this is the way they want to play it, you know. So that's no slight on Jim Gavin, or indeed myself for that matter, you know, because, you know, you're not thinking about what other coaches are going to do coming behind you. You're thinking about what you need to do to win right now. And Dublin felt that teams were going to be defensive, and they felt that they needed to play that way to draw teams out, and it worked brilliantly for them. And so we're in this moment now where everybody's playing this way. And, you know, maybe Desi will come in now and do something different with the Dublin team in a different style, and they still keep on winning, and we'll have a different conversation this time next year or 2 years from now. But for the moment, this is where we're at, and everybody is playing the same way.
Yes. It's really interesting to get your take on it. And I think if you're Donegal team, and every bit as much as the defensive brilliance, and I use the word brilliance, I do think of turnovers and direct in transition. And so you can't be held responsible for the poor imitations. The game styles make fights. I still think of that Dublin-Donegal game, you know, even though that wasn't the full fruition of everything you were working towards. It was, you know, cutting your cloth to suit that day. But styles make fights. It was a memorable game. Where's the Marcelo Bielsa? Where's the free thinking? You know, we need different people to come in with different ideas.
Well, listen, I looked at Donegal against Tyrone a couple of weeks ago in the National League, and then I made some comments about the game, you know, in terms of the game at the weekend there, and everything that was said was exactly what happened, because everybody's playing the same way. And if that is the case, then, you know, the kick-out becomes really important. And in the league game that I've seen Donegal and Tyrone, they pushed the 4 guys into the full forward line. They didn't allow Niall Morgan to go short. They pushed an extra player into the half-forward line, and then they overloaded the middle of the park. They forced it along. They had Hugh McFadden in there, they had Michael Murphy in there, they had physical size in there. So if it was going to go 50-50 in the sky, Donegal were going to win that battle. You know, Michael Langan, a lot of big guys in there. And so the kick-out is huge because of this. You know, possession of the ball is huge. But if you look at the times that Tyrone did get their hands on the ball, they could keep the ball. Like, it's common now, it's absolutely common now for there to be 1 minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of possession before a team kicks a point. And then the other thing that's significant is, you know, that shots to score ratio is very high. That, you know, teams are getting shots off because people are not seriously intensive and seriously determined to turn the ball over. So in a way, the game has kind of gone a wee bit soft or a wee bit looser in terms of that aspect of it. But it means then that, you know, for people watching it, you see 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 shots off, you know. But, like, you know, aggressive transitional play is exciting. And I know that from my own time when we were at it, like, you know, the crowd and the roar when that turnover happened. And then if you were good enough then to be able to inject pace, go in straight lines and get ahead of the ball and dink it inside and get runners off it and kick it over the bar, it was exciting, you know. And there's very few of those moments happening now. And if they are happening, most of them are happening off the kick-out when the ball is 50-50 in the middle of the park.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, I'll ask you anyway, but maybe what you've just said makes the question redundant. I was going to ask you, which inter-county manager tactically do you admire the most, or do you think is doing interesting things? Oh,
well, listen, I suppose to answer the question, you'd admire them all for taking on the job and the role, and it's an amateur sport, and the sacrifices are absolutely huge. But in terms of people doing something different, I just don't see it. I've seen a lot of the National League. I've seen all the championship games. Everybody's doing the same thing, so it actually makes it easier to call games, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because the defining factors, become about kickouts, and so if your keeper's not razor sharp, then you're going to really struggle. And if you look at, say, the likes of Dublin with Stephen Cluxton, Sean Patton, the likes of Rory Beggan and Monaghan, these guys that can retain the ball, they give you a serious platform by just putting the ball in your hand, and then trying to get the ball out of your hand is really, really difficult. Now, there'll always be pressure on the ball, but it's not savage and it's not intensive, and it shouldn't force you into turnover. And sort of, interestingly, it's a style of play that almost everybody can play because of that, because you've got time in the ball to an extent, and even sort of average teams in inverted commas, they can keep the ball really well because the pressure's not intense. It's only when the pressure becomes intense that teams struggle, and that doesn't matter what the sport is.
AM.
With Gillette,